Oh, hello, good evening, and welcome to another edition of Axiom Flux, or live from the Axiom Career community. We got tonight. It's episode 19 and season 4 on this, the 18th of March 2018, and we're on the topic tonight of. We're talking about self-responsibility. We've got some nice guests with us tonight. We've got me, Predator Geoff, and you've got Stav. We've got Stav here. Hello, Stav. Are you all right, mate?
Yeah, thanks, Geoff. I've never been referred to as a nice guest lately, but thank you very much.
Very, 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 very nice guest, Stav. We couldn't do it. We couldn't do it without you, my friend. We couldn't do it without you. We've got PJ as well. All right, PJ.
Yeah, evening, Geoff. Evening, guys.
All right, mate. We've got Lopi with us as well from Ohio. All right, Lopi.
Oi, I'm in Ohio, not from Ohio. And merhaba, everybody.
Oh, okay. All right, Lopi. Good to have you with us, Lopi. And we've got Surfer as well. Surfer, are you all right, mate?
Good evening.
Evening, Surfer. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good, good, good. Right. Well, on with the show. We're talking about self-responsibility tonight. I think we got a few articles we'd like to kick off with. I think we've got Lopi wants to kick us off with an article about self-responsibility. Do you want to go for it, Lopi?
Yes, first thing I'd like to do is speak to you about, show you a video about responsibility. Unfortunately, I'm actually now, my ride is here and I'm going to have to go. So just my luck, right? So I'm going to put the link, it's the last link in the chat, and that gives you a definition of responsibility. And it's not a long video, it's only a few minutes, and we'll hopefully I'll be back before the show ends. If it's not, I hope you have a great time. I've got lots of links here for you, and good luck. I have my self-responsibility and responsibilities to my Ziggy to go and get her some food and me food, and there we go.
No worries, Lopi. Well, we'll hope to have you back with us in due course. You take care. Right. Have a good day. Catch you
right, thank you.
There's Lopi.
Bye, Lopi.
Okay. Unfortunately, we've lost Lopi there because she's got to go off and do a few things. But I don't know whether you want. Do you want to bring that in, Stav? These articles that Lopi's been putting in.
Well, yeah. I guess we can start with a few things. She said she wanted this YouTube. I don't know if PJ's. Are you teching tonight, PJ?
Yeah, I can give it a go.
Do you want to share that last video YouTube that Lopi put in?
Yeah, let me have a look. There's quite a few in this list.
Just
give me a moment to load it up, and then I'll play it.
Thanks, PJ.
Is this just the audio that you want in, or the video as well?
Well, whichever's best you think with the bandwidth, PJ.
I think Lopi was going to kick off with the bottom link, won't she?
Yeah, I've got that one loaded up now. I mean, it's probably better if you do it, Geoff, but I can give it a go.
Well, yeah. If you could do it, if you could do this one, PJ.
All right, I'll give it a go then.
Thanks, mate.
So it's the responsibility motivational video. Yep. Is that the one?
Look it up.
I think so.
All right.
No, it's the last one. No, it's the next one. It's the last one. That's a separate ad, isn't it?
No, that's the one I've got. This is the one I've got, yeah.
Okay, let's go for it.
I'm just going to take it to 6 minutes long, so let's go for it. Mute up if you want.
There are many ways to get the things that we want for ourselves in our lives, but basically, it all begins with how we choose to think. As you think, so shall you be.
I don't know why you do what you do. What is your motive for action? What is it that drives you in your life today, not 10 years ago, or are you running the same pattern? Or your web? The needs, the beliefs, the emotions that are controlling you, for two reasons. So there's more of you to give. They're cheap too. We all want to do it, but I mean give. So that's what's going to fill you up. And secondly, so you can appreciate, not just understand, that's intellectual, that's mind, but appreciate what's driving other people. It's the only way our world's going to change.
7 little words that I think are perhaps the most important things that we can learn and master in our lives. This old proverb notion that I become what I think about all day long. And once you know that what you think about is what expands, you start getting real careful about what you think about. You don't allow your thoughts to be on anything that you don't want, or that you wouldn't want to have manifest or show up for you in your life. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Albert Einstein once observed that you have the most fundamental and major decision that you have to make in your life is this. Do I live in a friendly or a hostile universe? Which is it? Is it a universe that is filled with hostility and anger and people wanting to hate each other and people wanting to kill each other? Is that what you see? Because when you see the world that way, that's exactly what you will create for yourself in your life. This is from great scientific mind. And the interesting thing is that this is not just a clever play on words, that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. No matter what anybody says to you here, no matter what kind of anger comes directed towards you, no matter how much hate you may encounter showing up in your life, there are no justified resentments. Meaning that if you carry around resentment inside of you about anything or about anyone, and I'm talking about the person that you lent money to and hasn't paid you back, I'm talking about the person in your life that you feel was abusive in your life. I'm talking about the person who walked out on you and left you for somebody else. I'm talking about all of the things that you have justified in your heart and in your life that you have the right to be resentful about. And I'm suggesting to you that those resentments will always end up harming you and creating in you a sense of despair. No one ever dies from a snake bite. The snake bite will never kill you. You cannot be unbitten. Once you're bitten, you're bitten. But it's the venom that continues to pour through your system after the bite that will end up destroying you. And if we are conditioned, if we've conditioned ourselves to believe certain kinds of things, and one of the things that we kind of believe and hang on to and live with is this whole idea that some of us hear a different drummer, and we must march to the music that we hear. But all of you, everybody watching, everybody here in this beautiful parish, all of you have some music playing. And all of you have a heroic mission. There's no accidents in this universe. We all show up here with a purpose. There's an intelligence that is a part of everything and everyone, and all of us are connected to it. And too many of us are afraid to listen to that music and march to it. You out there, I know you have a book you wanted to write. I know there's a composition you wanted to compose. I know there's a song you want to sing someplace. Maybe you want to raise horses out in Montana. Or maybe you want to open up an ice cream shop on Cape Cod. Who knows what it may be. Maybe you just want to travel and see the world. Maybe you want to go into a relationship with someone, but you've been afraid to, but your heart says it's the right thing to do. All of us feel something. And in Leo Tolstoy's famous novel, The Death of Ivan Ilyich, he asks this question that would be terrifying to me. He says, as he has his accountant from Moscow lying on his deathbed, contemplating the horror of this question, what if my whole life has been wrong? I've known what my music is. It's playing right now. As I stand here in front of you with these cameras and in this place, as I sit down and write my books and tell the world what I know are my truths, I feel always completely on purpose. And no time will I ever come to the end of my life and say, what if my whole life has been wrong? Whoever you are, whatever that music is, however distant it may sound, however strange, however weird others may interpret it to be, don't get to the end of your life and know that you're going to leave and not have it played yet.
Okay, I think that was the end of that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think that was the wrong one. I think it was the one below that one, but
There isn't any other link below that one. That was the bottom link.
oh,
Well, it's an interesting article. I think it said something. I'm not quite sure what, but it's. I think we're all aware that there's consequences for our actions and inactions, I would say, and the only thing we're really responsible for is our choices, the choices that we make. That's the way I perceive it. What do you think?
well, I guess if you're not responsible for yourself or self-responsible, can you actually do what your dream or whatever you want to call it? You have to be responsible for that. If you're not, and you give all responsibility for yourself over to some authority, you will never accomplish that, will you? You'll just go through life doing whatever everybody else says, because you've handed over that responsibility to think, to do, to whatever, to someone else. So you could end up your last throes of life and saying, well, I never really done anything that I wanted to do because I wasn't responsible, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that sort of makes sense. I don't think I think we're totally responsible for our actions, but we can be affected by outside influences. And there's nothing quite often that we can do about that when outside influences affect us. Sometimes it's just, you just have to go with the flow. That's the way I see it. But I suppose you can limit outside influences to a degree by some of your choices. And what we got here?
Yeah, we just got some quotes that Lopi's left us with on self-responsibility. So I'm just going to scroll them down as you two are talking, and we can show this article.
Right.
What's this one here? I'm Frank. I'll read this one out then. Parents can only give good advice or put them on the right paths, but the final forming of a person's character lies in their own hands. I think that's a little conversation we were having last night, Geoff, were it not?
Yeah, I'll say so. Yeah. I think there's some. Do you want to read out the other ones, or do you want me to read them out?
Well, this one's a bit of a long one, so if you want to read it, can you see that all right, by the way?
Yeah, I can see that. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, give that a read then, yeah.
Okay. An afternoon drive from Los Angeles will take you up into the high mountains where eagles circle above the forests and the cold blue lakes, or out over the Mojave Desert with its weird vegetation and immense vistas. Not very far away are Death Valley and Yosemite and Sequoia Forest with its giant trees, which were growing long before the Parthenon was built. They are the oldest living things in the world. One should visit such places often and be conscious in the midst of the city of their surrounding presence, for this is the real nature of California and the secret of its fascination. This untamed, undomesticated, aloof prehistoric landscape, which relentlessly reminds the traveler of his human condition and the circumstances of his tenure upon the earth. You are perfectly welcome, it tells him, during your short visit. Everything is at your disposal. Only I must warn you, if things go wrong, don't blame me. I accept no responsibility. I am not part of your neurosis. Could you scroll up a bit, please, Peter? Don't cry to me for safety. There is no home here. There is no security in your mansions or your fortresses, your family vaults or your banks or your double beds. Understand this fact, and you will be free. Accept it, and you will be happy. Christopher Isherwood, Exhumations. Okay, what's the next one? Do not give your attention to what others do or fail to do. Give it to what you do or fail to do. Gautama Buddha. The next one, no one will come in to rescue you. You just have to step out somehow and make your dreams come true. Moffat Mashingura. The next one, stand in your own two shoes. T. Scott McLeod, all that is unspoken. And the next one, accountability and self-responsibility are critical to our success in personal, professional, and public life. However, we often look for those character traits in others rather than inculcating them in ourselves. Vishvas Shavan. Vishvasutras. Right, okay, the next one. You want to set me free? Do it. You want to turn me in? You can do that too. You're the only one with the choice. And that bullet in your back doesn't mean you've got any less choice than you ever did. Live free of fear if you want to. We all carry something inside us that could kill us. Yours just has a name. You want to change your life? Change it. You have no less of a right to be happy than the rest of us. Greer McAllister, The Magician's Lie. And the next one, life is a balancing act. While we have all the rights to be in freedom, peace, harmony, and bliss, we do have a responsibility to ensure that others too enjoy their own freedom, peace, harmony, and bliss. And the next one, don't try to be happy, just be happy, because your happiness does not depend on others. Be the reason for your own happiness. And the next one, but whatever happens, I've been happy, I've been loved, I've amazed crowds and drunk in their applause, not because of luck or favor or magic, because of will, my will. I've been willing to do whatever it takes. That's the closest thing I have to a secret, and now it's yours. It's a lot to think about, and he can't quite digest it, but there's a spark there. Maybe she's right about him. Maybe it's up to him how much he lets the bullet and the fear take over his life. Maybe not a curse, but a choice, his agency and no one else's. Greer McAllister. Next one. I could not bank on the phlegmatic Chinese. I would have to take care of it myself. This would be safer and also consistent with my own responsibility. The latter is the anarch's ultimate authority. I think they're referring to anarchy there. In other words, anarchy, which means without rule or without a ruler. So, you know, being self-responsible, standing in your own path. Okie dokie. It is in no way, hang on, I missed one. Sorry, the prospect of living without interference, living in a world where windfalls and misfortunes were never by design, held no terror for him. Ted Chiang. And then the next one, it is in no way, shape or form your cosmic duty or responsibility to take away the pain of other people. This is because of absorbing the pain of others, you are depriving them of a vital element of their spiritual evolution and karmic responsibility. Wow, that's deep stuff. What's the next one? Check your passions that you may not be punished by them. Epictetus. Enchiridion. I'm having problems with these words. Learn to love yourself from the inside, and you would not need others to love you from the outside. Sounds like very wise words. Without self-esteem and respect for others, you cannot be true to your own values. And the next one, if you are financially broke or feel stuck, there's a part of you, something about you, or something in you that has worked so hard to get you here. Sadly, it's all you in your vibration. The sooner we accept this truth, the sooner we take full responsibility and do all we can to free ourselves from the negative bondage. Jacent Mary Mipalyankana. Okay, interesting stuff there. Thank you, PJ. Wow, anybody got any comments on that?
Well, some deep thoughts there and some good quotes. Everybody should understand them. They're pretty perfectly clear, and shouldn't take too much studying, should they? Really, I think most people know these things, but for some strange reason, they're kind of scared of them as well. In today's climate, I think a lot of people are scared of the minutest things. Oh, I can't do that. Something might happen. Oh, best not do that. Oh no, can't do that. That might happen. And no, I could never do what you do, mate. I'll take me out off to you. Getting up on stage in front of everybody like that. I mean, I'd embarrass myself. I couldn't do that. And because of those thoughts, people, don't do the things that they really want to do. They put obstacles in their way, and they allow some strange authority to come into their lives and rule over them and make those decisions for them. And they seem to be kind of happy with that in a very cheap way in today's day and age. Just give me my phone and leave me alone.
I think people do take the safe option, Stav, without a shadow of a doubt there. They don't like to take people. I don't think generally people like to take risks. I think you have to live life as a balancing act. You have to assess risks. I think you have to calculate risks before you do things. You shouldn't just jump in and do things willy-nilly. But I think also, by the same token, you have to you can't live in fear. If you live in fear too much, then you risk not doing anything at all and not enjoying your life to the full, without a shadow of a doubt. So I think it's a balancing act. I think you have to get the right balance. And I suppose with self-responsibility, it's a case of you sort of learn through life by experience, by making your own choices. That's the only way you can it's two ways. This is what I was talking to PJ about. There's two ways you can live your life. One's by experience and one's by wisdom. You can learn by other people's experiences as well. So that's what I call wisdom. If you learn by other people's experiences, you don't have to fall flat on your face yourself every time, because you'll know if something, by watching other people make mistakes, you can learn from their mistakes and things like that. But I think generally a lesson that's hard learned in life is a lesson that's well learned, because if you do make your own mistakes in life, you're not going to make those again, are you? That's
all part of that's all part of the learning process in life. Life is a risk anyway.
Absolutely.
Life is meant to be a risk. Otherwise, what's the point to any of it? I mean, today there was something that went off in London, and it was about freedom of speech, wasn't it? With Mr. Robinson going to Speaker's Corner. Now, in this world, in this intrusive world, which tends to want to trample on anybody's dreams in that respect. Like, you can't say this because that's a hate crime. You can't think this because that's a thought crime. These are the dangers of bringing about losing self-responsibility. If you allow that to control you, then you can never have self-responsibility. You can never live your dreams or do the things that you really wanted to do in your life. And before you know where you are, I guess some people say if you're lucky to get 10, you'd probably be on that last few moments of the physical ride, as a lot of people want to call it, and say, you know what, I didn't do what I wanted to do because I was scared. I was too scared of being punished for living my dream, and I let them take that away from me. And I think if anybody gets to that stage in life, it must be a very sad thing to realise. So today was a very important thing in more ways than one, whether you agree with the guy and his political, his political way of thinking, or politics and all the rest of that old CRAP. He stood up and said something. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks of that person. At least you got to say, well, I think he's done that because he wanted to. At the end of the day, if it wasn't him, there'd be no crowds of people there. There'd be no event today. So I think we've got to be very careful in today's day and age of losing what we're discussing tonight, which is self-responsibility. I think it's very, very important that people realise that.
I agree, Stav. I think freedom of speech is so important as well, because freedoms are so hard fought for, but so easily lost. And that's a sad state of affairs. When you lose freedom, it can take hundreds of years to get them back for people. And it's up to people to stand up and say, well, this is my freedom, and I don't care what you want, the state. I don't care what the state wants. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And if it's right, and if it's the right word, and it's the right action, and you're being responsible, then I think that's good enough, regardless of what the state wants, because we know inherently what's the right words, the right actions. And if you offend somebody, whilst that might, in the eyes of the state, that might be hate speech or whatever, or they might try and nobble you for some sort of thought crime or pre-crime or whatever. At the end of the day, you're responsible for your own actions. And if you say something that offends somebody, well, they might just get offended and get the ump and walk off in disgust, or they might turn around and put a bullet through your head. But at the end of the day, if you believe you've said something that's right, you're responsible for your own actions. It's a case of, you take that risk. You're taking the risk by saying something that might offend somebody. But if you feel that it's something that needs to be said, and that outweighs, in your opinion, the risk, then, if you've got to say it, you've got to say it. And,
absolutely. But the only thing I would say about what you're saying, Geoff, is you're quite right. But when somebody feels that they're offended by someone else's actions, then that should be for the other person to do something about it, not bring in a third party and say, Nanny, will you do something for me? He said nasty things about me. I order you arrest him. That's what we're looking at today. But I do agree. I defend anybody's freedom of speech, whether I agree with it or not. It doesn't make no odds. Even actual fact, if I would welcome it, even if it offended me, I would welcome and I'd respect that person's freedom of speech.
The way
I would deal with that person in a debate, a mono on mono. I wouldn't bring some ridiculous outside interference to sort it for me. Now, if you're going to do that, those are the people that lack self-responsibility. Those are the people that have sold it, called it off, got rid of it, or don't even know what self-responsibility is. In my opinion, yeah.
Well, it sort of makes you a ward of the state, doesn't it? If you delegate your responsibility to outside powers, it's like saying, I'm a child, I'm irresponsible, I'm not capable of debate, I'm not capable of this, I'm not capable of that. I need you to come in and be a referee. And by doing that, you're showing your irresponsibility. And I think so, you know, like you say, you're quite right, Stav. It's a case of, I mean, everybody's got their own responsibility. How you behave with your words might affect somebody or offend somebody, but then it's down to them to be responsible and argue in an adult-like manner rather than pulling out a gun and shooting you or something. So everybody's got their own part to play. Everybody's got their own responsibility to play within it. I mean, they all know the difference between right and wrong, you know, at the end of the day, and they should balance and temper what they do based on the golden rule, I would say. If you keep that and bear that in mind all the time, that it would sort of keep your responsibility held to the fire, so to speak. That's the way.
Yeah, that's where it's changed, and I really do feel this. I really do think where things have changed in the past 5-6 decades I've been on this earth, where it's drastically changed. Whereas years ago in the 60s and 70s, you sorted your own problems out when it came to being offended. That was a thing that we all sorted out with each other, and didn't bring in authority. It was actually none of the authority's business, and should remain that way when you're talking about non-crimes, victimless crimes as they call them, which is ridiculous thing to call them. So we used to be able to sort these childish things out, to put in the right context, because, you know, sticks and stones was something we learned very early on as children, and it stopped it like that. It absolutely, there was no, it just completely, there was no discussion afterwards. Basically, it was finished, over and done. And if somebody didn't like that and they wanted to take it any further, then, you know, many a time that down the local brewery, you know, two guys would go outside and settle it, and that would be the end of that. There was no calling of police because, hey, arrest him, officer, because he's just called me a racist name, or he's upset me, he's offended me. No, that's where it's changed, I think, Geoff, over the years, unfortunately. And it's very dangerous. It's dangerous. You know, it's a dangerous situation to be in.
What we've sort of done really is I think we've stopped growing as a people. We've stopped growing spiritually to the point that we don't talk to people don't talk to each other as much as they should do. They rather spend their time with their heads buried in their mobile phones, and because they stop talking to each other, they stop growing spiritually to the point that they can't solve their problems by themselves and take responsibility for their own actions, their own word of mouth, and so on and so forth. And then they delegate it all to the authorities, and then the state grows and it gets bigger and bigger. And what I always say is, be careful what you ask for from the state, because every time you ask for something from the state, it comes at a cost. And the state grows bigger and bigger and more powerful and more powerful. And it then, well, it costs us in our freedoms. You know, these freedoms and rights get taken away, and more state pressure is applied on the people. And then they look at us, I suppose the state would look at us as irresponsible children, and you know, wards of the state or whatever, and then things go from bad to worse. So if you want to minimize state interference in your life, I would say be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it.
Definitely.
Take on
Well,
it.
if I was the state, I would be pissed off with it all and say, look, guys, go and sort it out yourselves, you know, because
that's the way they're going to learn self-responsibility after all, isn't it, Stav? You know.
Well, yeah, like I say, it was something that was, you know, wasn't a problem 3 or 4 decades ago, because we, as people and adults and people who were responsible, sorted it out. And it's not nothing to do with the state, whether somebody upset somebody because, you know, they said something rude to them that was, you know, they dislike. I mean, I looked on the CPS website and I read this thing about hate crime on the Crown Prosecution Service, and it gets to the point where they consider dislike could be a crime. Dislike.
I mean, this dislike.
Insane.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting that you mentioned CPS. I weren't going to mention it tonight, but since you've just touched on it, I'll quickly mention it. I've been asking a lot of people, how old do they think the CPS is? And most people are telling me, a few hundred years, 500, 600 years. Some are saying like 800 years, where Magna Carta were. But if you actually look, it's 1984 or 1986, one of them. But it's so recent. And everybody thinks it's always been here. It's been here since, law first began. But it hasn't. It's been interfering for, past 30, 40 years, and that's about it.
Yeah, well, PJ, what I think with the CPS, there isn't a hate crime legislation. There is no hate crime legislation. So they pick some act out of a disorder.
Like Communications Act or something.
Yeah. And then they arbitrarily pick it to pieces and make it into a crime. Them, CPS, they arbitrarily go about doing things like that. And this is what the problem is. And like you say, it's 86, I think. You could be right. I think it's 86. It's something that's only been brought in quite recently. And I was disgusted, actually, to be honest, what I was reading on the pettiness of them. And I think we're in very dangerous times. And I just think it was important, whether you agree with him or not, whatever you come, whatever angle. I thought it was quite an important thing that happened in Speaker's Corner today. So there we are.
I think thank you. I agree with that, Stav. I think that CPS are sort of somewhat of a law unto themselves, I would say, if they can just arbitrarily, put their own definition on some sort of act and apply it, arbitrarily to just any old situation. It's ridiculous state of affairs. I'd just like to bring in, I think we got Chrisy with us. Is that you, Chrisy? Are you there? Hello? Are you there, Chrisy? Okay.
Microphone's muted.
Yeah, he's been trying to get on for a while. It's good to see him on, but he may be still having some other tech issues that he's probably dealing with.
Ah, there he is. We got his cam, but he's got his microphone muted still. Chrisy, you want to unmute your microphone if you can there, mate? No, you can't. Doesn't seem to be able to unmute his microphone at the moment. You're still muted up, Chrisy. Okay, well, we'll get back to Chrisy anyway. Welcome on the show anyway, Chrisy. Good to have you with us. I hope you can sort your microphone issue out there. Have you got anything you'd like to pipe in with Surfer? You got any thoughts on what we've been talking about? No?
I'm all good. Just listening in.
Okie dokie. No worries. Have you got any more articles you'd like to put in, PJ?
Well, it's the Lopi's articles, really, aren't they? It's what she's left, so it's up to you guys. You can carry on talking about, what we're talking about now, or carry on with the rest of these articles. There's quite a few to get through.
Well, I do have one, but I lost it off my bleeding tab. I've got to try and find it again. Well, there it is, I think. All right, it's a newspaper article, but I mean, it's just posing a question actually on something we actually discussed. What was it? Way back, it might have been season 3. I think it was. It wasn't season 4, PJ. And that's it's as we're talking about self-responsibility on what things that may come that's just around the corner, and a lot of people could argue and say it's a good thing if it comes about, or it's I think at the time we were sort of, oh, well, if it does come about, maybe it would be a good thing, but there's a negative side to it as well. And I'm just going to use this. Well, I could have picked 1,000 articles, but it'd be interesting to see your thoughts on the other side of this, on whether it starts to strip away from your self-responsibility, so to speak. So if you want me to share that article, and I'll read it to you, PJ. It's only a short one from I think it's an independent. Yeah. Well, it's. I'm just using the article as a topical point for it anyway. So if you want me to do that, I can share that one now and get that out of the way, and then perhaps we can pull up some more of Lopi's, if you like, PJ.
Yeah, go for it then. Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay, doke. All right. Okay. Let's share. You want me to share? If I can get this, come here. Okay, doke. See this?
Can't see anything yet. Ah, yeah, we got that. There you go. Can see that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's the basic income. I mean, if I remember the universal basic income, we were talking about I think it was last year. Yeah, I think you remember that. And we did talk. I think it was at the time that we're entertaining a pilot scheme. I'm yet to go back and see what the results was. That's just reminded me. I'll have to do that. Be interested. Well, anyway, here's the article. I'll read it. It's not very long. It's only about 3 or 4 minutes it'll take to read it, and then you can let me know on whether bringing this internet, basic universal basic income in, whether it would actually, take away one's self-responsibility. But anyway, I'll read it to you, see what you think. Basic income is a dangerous idea that gives the state power to control every penny that citizens spend. In an age of increasing lifestyle regulation, a basic income would open the door to state dictate over consumption. That's a nice meal, isn't it? Anyway, from Canada to Switzerland, the idea of a universal basic income, UBI, is gaining popularity. The Swiss are due to vote on the idea on 5th of June this year in the UK. The Green Party has flirted with the idea, and Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell's expressed an interest too. It sounds great, but the basic income changes the relationship between people and government in frightening ways. The benefits of a basic income appear straightforward. It allows us to fill our bloated welfare state in an instant, rather than the tangle of different means-tested benefits and entitlements available today. Everyone will be paid a basic income by the state, which should cover or almost cover the basic cost of living. Work, therefore, becomes an activity pursued to increase personal income. And yet the UBI actually expands the remit of the state. Replacing the welfare system will perhaps reduce the vast armies of bureaucrats recruited to administer the benefit system. But while the state, in broad terms of size and cost, may shrink, the role of the state will expand. This is troubling. Food bank there, look. Everybody's happy. Some food in a plastic bag. Right, with UBI, every citizen will rely, I guess that is, at least in part, on his or her income being handed out by the state, rather than their existing pockets of state dependency. All of us will become, albeit at different degrees, dependent. The state will now have a role in topping up everyone's pay packet. Instead of the state playing a role within society and the economy, where private action is inadequate for schooling and healthcare, for example, and as a safety net of last resort, as the welfare state was originally conceived. It becomes a manager and provider for all. It will become a constant fixture of the financial lives of us all, a sort of lifetime employer. The implications are huge. At a time, the way we live our lives and our consumption habits have become the constant. Nagging concern of the state, from minimum prices for alcohol to the sugar tax. There, the worrying potential for a basic income to be used to enforce a change in people's spending habits and lifestyle. Observe how commentators observe that someone claiming social benefits may be spending a portion of its incomes on cigarettes, alcohol, or gambling. In the US, for example, welfare payments are often made in food stamps, redeemable only for items the state considers essential. In an age of increasing lifestyle regulation, a basic income would open the door to increased state diktat. At the same time, the state will essentially step into the role of subsidizing business. To a lesser extent, this already happens today. There are already low-income jobs in the US where workers rely on food stamps to supplement their incomes. In the UK, many low-paid workers require housing benefit to keep a roof over their heads. UBI would not eliminate this problem, but extend it. The primary role of the state will be to top up citizens' pay packets and pensions. Many economists observe that when it comes to wages, the floor price is often determined by the cost of the worker's ability to survive from day to day. That is, that they must pay at least the bare minimum in order for the worker to eke out some sort of shelter and acquire at least some sustenance in order for them to return to the work next day. Not anymore. With basic income, the state will guarantee everyone's basic ability to survive from one day to the next, and so work, however skilled, will potentially pay less. If workers are able to survive on lower wages, with business now rely on wage subsidy by the state, then businesses will expand their profit margins thanks to the intervention of the state. Is that what we want? It may appear utopian, but the basic income will change the relationship between the citizen and the state significantly, and not in the ways we might hope. So there we are. That's that article. I just thought I'd get that out of the way. So would you say, let me get rid of this. Oh, thanks, PJ. Would you say a UBI would effectively take away one's self-responsibility, Geoff?
I think yes, to a degree, it would certainly make us reliant on the state for that, because people would come to expect it. I would say, but having said that, I think in a way, the fact that we've built up a sort of infrastructure around our society, to the point where we can produce a lot of the resources that we need, in a way, it should be afforded to all of us as well by the same token. Because what happens in the sort of system that we got is that as corporations grow and things become automated, a lot of jobs disappear. So I think they're having to seriously look at the idea of a universal basic income. But then where does the money come from for it? So they're going to have to sort of somehow increase taxation on big corporations and stop them avoiding these taxes in order to get the money to pay out this universal basic income. Otherwise, if they're just going to print money off the old printing press, what's going to happen is it's just going to expand the money supply, and everything's going to be worth less anyway. So you're going to, you'd be able to, everything's just going to go up and up and up in price, because as you inflate the money supply, you're just going to cause inflation. So I think there's pros and cons to it. I think there's definitely pros and cons. And I think, it needs to be seriously thought out whether that would be such a good thing. But you're definitely delegating power to the state, which is not a good thing. I think.
I guess in a way, it's almost as dangerous as the cashless society, where they run the digital currency, and solely it's centralized by them. If you get that plus UBI, I mean, do you have a life? Would you say that if you was getting X amount, right, and let's just say that the corporations decide to bring in a load of machines to do your work anyway, you're not even going to get a job, are you? You're not even going to be able to top up. You're not even going to be able to top up that UBI, are you? So with them giving you a few crumbs now and then through a digital centrally controlled currency, which is what they would try and do in a cashless society, which this is one of the many battles that's going on. To talk about battles, it's on many fronts at the moment. It's everything, Geoff, isn't it? So, I mean, would it be worth having a life if you had UBI and you had all of the labour jobs were done by autonomous machinery, and you couldn't get a job, and you're stuck in, them even distributing them crumbs through their centralised monetary system? I don't suppose it'd be called money anymore, really. Would it actually be worth children being born into that world? It's a sad thing to think, isn't it?
It is a worrying thing to think, and I think to a large degree, Stav, we've already got that in a way, because wages have become so repressed by fast immigration and women entering the workforce and everything, that most people are on some form of benefit now any day anyway. So they get very repressed wages, and then they have to top it up with some sort of state fund, whether it be child benefit or whatever. So I think it's sort of, in a way, a bit like an extension of that. I think the reason that they want to bring it in is just to make administration a lot easier, and less costly. Because if
you mean a bit like smart meters, not any cheaper, and some argue actually more expensive, but for your convenience, like.
Well, yeah, I mean, the cost of means testing all these different benefits and that is absolutely extortionate, and that eats into what they actually, what they could be paying out to people for these benefits. So it could save money on administration costs, an awful lot of money. But by the same token, another way to look at it, Stav, I suppose, is if you give all this money out, what happens if they take it away? You're totally dependent on the state. There's no self-responsibility in it. You're totally dependent on the state. And of course, if they can give it out, they can take it away at any time. So if they decide, that they don't like the way you're behaving, or, you're being irresponsible, you're going out and spending all your money on alcohol and cigarettes and fatty foods, and, where does it stop? If government dictate comes in and says, well, you can only have money for this, you can only have money for that. It's like mum and dad with your pocket money, isn't it? It's become that sort of, if it becomes to that sort of state where you can't decide for yourself, well, that's not teaching you responsibility, is it? It's quite the opposite in a way. It's sort of looking at you like a little child and saying, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I mean, they come up with one idea where I think they were trying to bring in, was it universal credit, where you get all your benefits in one thing. You get your housing benefit, your council tax benefit, and everything all in one. I think that's universal credit, not universal basic income. And instead of your money going direct to your landlord to pay for your rent, I think you have to pay it individually to which that gives, in a way, that does give you more responsibility than what you might have currently had, because you've then got to go to your landlord and make sure that you pay your rent yourself on time. So in a way, that gives you a bit more responsibility, but it's still state control in it, overall, by and large, I would say. That's the way I see it. It's You know.
Yeah, well, they would effectively become your Mrs. Doubtfire, but in a bad way.
Yeah, definitely. But it's a long way off from traditionalism and independence, isn't it? Because self-responsibility is independence, let's face it. And to be fully independent, if you had your own little plot of land, and this is the way I see independence and self-responsibility. If you've got your own little plot of land and you've got your own building on it that you've built or you've had built and paid for it or whatever, you've got your own place, you've got your own solar panels, you're self-sustainable, you grow your own veggies, and that's true independence, in my opinion, because it's you might call it traditionalism or anarchy or whatever you call it. You haven't got the state telling you what to do. You're providing for yourself. That's true self-dependence. That's true freedom, in my opinion. And you're off the grid. So you're not reliant on the electric companies to make sure that the power is coming through, because you're generating your own power, or using sun power or harvesting whatever power from the sun, or if you've got a wind turbine or whatever to do it. That's more what I would call independent, self-reliant, self-responsible. That's the way I perceive self-responsibility, because you've got no dependence on anybody then, But I think, the question is, how much do we need a collective society? Do you know what I mean by collective? If you start living your life collectively with reliance on other people around you, which is sort of state control or whatever you want to call it, or communities, relying on communities in a smaller way maybe, or something, where do you draw the line? I think some things collectively can be good, but it's at a cost. Is it a cost to that self-responsibility ultimately?
Well, it's something I've noticed with the millennial generation, especially with the millennial generation. And this is not to point any blame or anything like that. And most it lies with the responsibility of the Generation X parents, or even late baby boomer parents, that they've sort of brought this about because they wanted this world for their children to have everything they couldn't have, and they packed them off to school, bought them this, bought them that, made sure they had the latest things and whatever they were as children growing up, and this, that, and the other, and then packed them off to university, which to me the numbers, people young going to university, even back in the late 80s, early 90s, when it's all sort of started to change, where the mass was going to university, and of course they'll bum around and taking degrees that make no sense at all, that are not at all absolutely worthless on the outside world. These generations grow up and feel that it's an extension, university, and work doesn't come into their thought process of going out and getting a 9 to 5 or whatever it is that they've got to be. They're now an adult and they've got to get out in that world and make their life and be self-responsible. And this seems to be like with this, I don't know, Mr. Corbyn, get out of the way, older generation. I've got the youth vote with me type thing, which I think is disgusting and arrogant of somebody to say that as a politician. And it's these Antifa people always seem to be that kind of generation, and they just want the ride to carry on, and they just don't want to go to work. They want to carry on doing endless university degrees that mean nothing in real life, no good to anything. And we've kind of this, what we have now is a generation that don't want self-responsibility. I feel I mean, I could be wrong. It's debatable. I know, and but that's how I feel. That's what's happened as well. So the topic is self-responsibility. Well, perhaps the generation that are in the streets, open borders, everybody, live in a university campus type thing. They don't want what we're talking about tonight. Maybe, I don't know. I feel that's one of the main reasons why the world is like it is in the Western world, anyway. And maybe they're happy for other people to come in and do the work they don't want to do. I don't know, because they want to just be looked after. It's an extension of what the late baby boomers and Generation X parents have installed into them, and they don't know anything else, and they want it to carry on. And some of these people are in their mid to late 20s, and or I suppose generation, millennials are now a bit younger than that, up to 25, and they don't know. They don't up to the age of 25, they don't know life without the internet, and that's crazy. Well, this is where we are, I think.
I think there's a lot of truth in what you say, Stav. I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a while, because
please.
Yeah, I'm going to play devil's advocate here because for a couple of reasons. Number one, we talk about self-reliance, self-responsibility, independence, which are all very similar things. There are some people that can't be totally self-reliant, self-independent, people that have got disabilities. So this is where the state should come in, and their responsibility to the people that can't be self-responsible for whatever reason. If they've got some sort of disability, say for example, you've got somebody who's an amputee, got no arms and no legs, things like that, then the state should have a responsibility to them, because they can't do stuff for themselves. So they're going to need carers to come round to look after them, to make sure they're kept clean and what have you. Because in a civilized society, you can't just dismiss people with problems. As a civilized society, we should be there to help them and give them the support that they need, not necessarily give them an independent life, but to give them some sort of quality of life. I don't know, what sort of quality they would have, but at the end of the day, I mean, they do need our help. And I'm going to play devil's advocate with another point as well, because we can only be self-reliant to a certain point, as the current situation is, the way the state has controlled every aspect of our natural resources. And I've touched on this before, and I think it's important to note that we cannot be 100% independent. I don't care who you are, how independent you are or you'd like to be. You cannot be 100% independent under the current system unless you own land and have access to resources. The three basic resources for life, apart from the sort of stuff you get from the sun and the energy you get from the sun, is your land, your water, and your what was the other thing? Three things: land, water, and
shelter.
Sorry,
shelter.
No, I was going to say,
housing.
Well, no, you need access to get all the other things like your houses and what have you. To be able to build that, you need the land first and foremost. Then you need clean air and you need water. That's it. Land, water, and air, basically.
Any food? Do we need any food?
That comes with your land, though, doesn't it? And your water, clean air.
And grow the food on the land. You've got the access to the land. You've got the access then to grow your own food and things like that. But the three resources, this is where things are going wrong in society: land, water, and air. Now, for example, now there's companies, and what they're doing, I mean, they've already stolen the land. People, the vast majority of people don't have access to the land. They don't own the land. They'd be lucky to rent a little plot of land, i.e. a small garden or something, if they've got, you know, or an allotment or something like that. But the companies, big companies like Nestle, are taking away people's independence. What they're doing is they are bottling all the water up. And I've noticed this. There seems to be a growing trend. The new oil is water. And what they want to do, all these big companies, is they're taking control of the water supplies. Now, once they do that, you're then reliant on paying probably extortionate costs for water. I've noticed that this seems to be a growing trend. Where does it stop next? After they've done water, are they going to go for all the air? Take all the air, put it in bottles, and then say, if you want to breathe, you need to pay this amount of money to have a bottle of oxygen or something. Where does it stop? I mean, who knows? In hundreds of years' times, we might be in a situation where, you know, we're all fighting for the air that we breathe. Who knows? I mean, anything's possible with these companies. I know it sounds ridiculous, but a lot of this has gone on in places like California with Nestle and all these these big companies. And the banks, apparently the big bankers are getting into this as well. They're taking away our independence, our ability to live normal, free, independent lives, which is ridiculous. They're destroying the environment all around them in so many different ways, and they're making things unbearably impossible for people, you know. So where do we go with independence then when we've lost our basic resources, land, air, and water?
Well, this is why it's very important that people don't lose their self-responsibility. And if you don't lose your self-responsibility, right, you have no fear to stand up and speak your mind, like freedom of speech, where you say, no, we're not going to do this. And I'm going to tell you what I think and why we're not going to do this. And the only thing that's going to stop that is to let the nanny state come in and bring in these ridiculous rules to say that you can't speak your mind. And then, yes, you will lose all of these things and depend on your self-responsibility. So it's very important to not lose self-responsibility, and also for those who don't even know what it is, to gain self-responsibility. And I think us older generation have a duty to humanity to point these things out to the younger generation and saying, it might be nice and fluffy and warm and food, and you don't have to do nothing except go to university or whatever it is. It's not all milk and honey life, and there's a reason for it. And we should. The only other thing I will say, on your first about people who can't be self-responsible, I could be devil advocate, opposite of devil's advocate there, Geoff. I could say might be some disabled people say it's a bit disingenuous, really, because a lot of disabled people are self-responsible. I know quite a few. I got a brother who's very self-responsible, Bill. He's disabled. It's never stopped him from doing the things in his life, and he doesn't, if it came down to him not doing the things and just settling for an income, a UBI, I think he would tell him to go and do something with it, if he had to give up his self-responsibility. So a lot of disabled people, I mean, for instance, whether you thought he was a rubbish scientist or not, did Stephen Hawking need benefits? Was he not self-responsible? I doubt if he needed any benefits at all. And there's a man who in the end could only actually move a muscle in his eye or the cheek of his eye or whatever. We can't get any more disabled than that. But he's an exception to the rule. I admit that.
It's funny you should say that. I seen a video the other day, Stav, and there was a bloke and he had no arms, and he did everything with his feet, and he was operating a sewing machine, and he was with his feet. And he was absolutely amazing, incredible what he could do. I mean, people do adapt. I will admit, people do adapt, but there are some people that aren't in the position to be able to do that because some things are some disabilities and things are extreme. It's rare, but it does happen. We have got a responsibility to them, really, as a collective or whatever.
Yeah, but they're not the majority. But there might be something else about that. Maybe today's generations growing up do have a disability. It's a psychological disability that's been installed and indoctrined, but they don't take it as a disability. But from older generation people, it may be that a lot of the population psychologically is disabled.
Well, I think this is a fault of the education system. And in fact, the education system itself is a form of irresponsibility. Maybe we should be homeschooling our children and bringing them up to be more responsible, or, to help them, put them on the right tracks and everything. I don't think schools do a very good job of this. Basically, schools just tend to, create obedient slaves. Doesn't really teach them anything in a real world way, from what I can see. So I think this is half the problem. So they use the law to force them to go off to these indoctrination camps called schools. They just get taught the basic information to operate machines and do whatever is necessary to fit into the workplace as best they can, I suppose. And there's a minimal amount of jobs out there now. And they don't really teach them anything about responsibility or things like that. So I just think it's, like I said, schools in itself is a form of irresponsibility in a way. That's the way I see it.
I just feel that this isn't something that's been repeated. They say history and things, and it goes in cycles, and generations and humanity of generations, they get over these things and these hurdles and whatever. I'm not going to say that future generations won't get over it. It's just that this time round, there was 9 in my family, and to be perfectly honest with you, even though my family life was really enjoyable as a young kid growing up in the countryside, and not like I didn't know what government was, never even discussed government. Only that my parents said, look, these guys have got suits and ties on and uniforms, keep out of their way, or you see the Rothschilds and the rest of it. Yes, they used to talk about them. My parents told me that in the 60s, the Rothschilds. And you don't have any aspirations. You're not one of those. You'll never be one of those. So don't even go anywhere near those people. That's how I was brought up, because they kind of knew the score, even though they were, an older generation. They kind of knew what we know in a way, not as much, but because they didn't have the internet. But they knew who was who, really, when it came down to it. So, but 9 in a family, I couldn't wait to leave home. I was raring to go. I couldn't wait to get out and get in that big world. But today, it seems I know people that have got, they call them their kids, and they're in their 30s and 40s still living at home. And I'm thinking, what's going on here? This ain't right. It somehow isn't right to me. Call me old-fashioned if you like, but I don't think, unless you lived in an Indian community and the family and the grandmother and they all stayed together, but I think they all used to go out and do their thing. I think maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've got it wrong there. But in our Western worlds and the way we've been brought up is children went to work not that long ago. Kids went to work. Enough schooling in the Victorian days. Kids went to work. Whether it was a good thing or not, workhouses and all the rest of it, I'm not saying it is, but it's kind of a crap point, actually. Forget that. But you know what I'm trying to say. So I just think I can't got along with a lot what's going on today, and I can't make much sense of it, other than what I said about they've been wrapped in cotton wool and they want to stay in cotton wool. I don't know. Anyway, have you got any other?
I mean, I don't think we can be independent 100% because of the reasons I outlined earlier on about having access to certain resources. In that sense, in the sense of self-sustainability, but we can be more responsible than we currently are. I would say. I mean, I think a lot of people. I think education is really a bad problem with this, because so many people run themselves into debt and things. A lot of that is the fault of the central banking system, which is like, it seems like we've got so many traps, things holding us back. It's like the state is deliberately holding us back. You know, I mean, in places like in America, you can't even take rainwater. They make it illegal to take rainwater and use rainwater and things like this. So becoming independent, I think, it's becoming everything's so restrictive. You can't grow vegetables in your front garden in some places. I mean, what's that all about? That's taking away responsibility. So many different things. I mean, people have probably got to the point now where they realize, a lot of people realize that, and they give up, and they think, just let the state bloody provide. If they're going to take it all away, let them be the ones to give us it back, sort of thing. I don't know. That sounds like sort of very negative. I think there is a lot of things we can do to maximize our responsibility, but it's within the constraints. Unfortunately, I have to say, it's within the constraints and the boundaries of what's being enforced upon you by the state. The state does seem to be the problem, to a degree. But
I think it's part and parcel. The political indoctrination of all this started at the beginning of the 20th century with perhaps even a bit back with liberalism. The political agenda of liberalism. In actual fact, one of the biggest power grabs come under a liberal government, and that was the Parliament Act by Asquith. And they came out of the Fabians. They're out of the same box, if you like, as the Labour Party came out of, and this was this liberal idea to get rid of capitalism. Really, they don't necessarily like any forms of capitalism, really, and this liberal agenda has been rolled out since then. Really, the whole idea of that has caught fire, and when it becomes part of society now, you've got to have these liberal views on liberal this and liberal that. To a certain degree, I guess everybody comes under a form of liberalism, but the liberalism that you see today, what they call liberalism, is completely off the rocker. It's not as, but it did get brought into the political agenda through that time and through those societies, and I think that it's like the anti-capitalists. They've always been there, as far as I remember. Yeah. They've always been at G20 protests or whatever. It's not a new thing, but it's mostly young people, and then those young people kind of grow up and they drop it and they get on with their lives, and then the next youth come through, and anti-capitalists all dressed up in black and got, all the rest of it, anti-fascists and anti-capitalists, and then they grow up, and then the next wave comes in. It seems to be a youth thing, part of the rebellious youth and growing up, I guess, but I don't know. It's
I'm just going to welcome Chrisy back now. Hopefully his microphone's working. We can soon find out. Hello, Chrisy, are you with us?
Hello, Chris.
Oh, there he is.
Have we got you?
Oh, finally.
Hey.
How you doing, guys? It's been a proper struggle getting on tonight. It's really funny because when I get invited to a hangout by trolls and wrong-uns, I seem to be able to get on fine. As soon as I go on one with decent people like you guys are, I have nothing but trouble getting on there. But can everyone hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Thanks for having me, guys. Sorry I took so long getting on here. I've had to go through about 14 different devices to try and get through. But I'm here now. Guys, I was just going to listen in for a minute and get the feeling of the conversation and then sort of give you my opinions and views, if that's okay.
Yeah, spot on, Chrisy, no worries. We'll just be talking about self-responsibility tonight. I think Stav mentioned about Stephen Hawking and Geoff said he's seen a video. And I've got a video here that I want to play. It's only a minute and a half long, if that. I'm going to give it a go. So,
Please.
Go on, Chrisy.
Go for it, guys.
All right, no worries. If you want to mute up, it'll be a lot better on audio.
I'll do it, mate.
Go for it then, PJ.
Right, hopefully you should all see this on your screens.
Yeah, we can see that.
All right, I just wanted to share that. Hopefully you saw that. Let me just sort myself out on my screen here. Yeah, I wanted to share that because I think when we come into this world, you know, whatever it is, if you think there's like some sort of life force energy that starts off before you come into this world, what it is it craves out for these sort of experiences, these ways of, you know, being able to express itself. And in a physical body, it's only capable of doing that. So when you've got establishment trying to stop you from doing something, they've got a job on their hands because this is all we're here for. If we can't do that, then it goes against the main thing. That's the spine of the whole structure of it all, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's definitely it's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that, PJ. And it was fantastic what that little girl was doing, and it underlines what I was saying to Geoff earlier on. I know Geoff was being devil's advocate and that about disabled people, and like I say, I've got a brother who's disabled, and he's one of the most self-responsible people you could meet. And that you could, yeah, he gets benefits because he's, you know, severely disabled. But he, if he had a choice, and he does a lot of things, he actually does watercolor painting, and he's got lots of things he does, maintains his own vehicles and everything. If he had to give that away for the sake of keeping his benefit, I don't think there'd be any question of what decision he would make, PJ, you know? So we kind of, when we look at people that are vulnerable and they need help, it's a natural thing to help people. But the type of help that, you know, they get from the state is really not much help anyway. So what I'm trying to say is that self-responsibility has many forms. It's not just, it sounds a simple thing, but all the things we discussed tonight about it all, if you lose self-responsibility, you lose all of that, everything. And people today seem to be, some people anyway, seem to be crying out to get rid of it. You know, let the state come in and do this for me, do that for me. take this away. I'm not responsible. I can't cope without you, the EU. I can't cope without a dictator. I can't cope without a nanny. And you know, that comes at a very, very severe price. And yeah, that's all I've got to say about that. But thanks for sharing that with us, Fisher.
Well, I just thought there's people out there that won't even let themselves stop themselves, so they're not going to let anybody else stop them. And that little girl there were a prime example, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ooh, who's making a funny noise?
We did have Chrisy.
I'm still here.
Oh,
if I'm making funny noise.
That's all right, Chrisy. Go ahead. Got anything to say at the moment, or you're still listening?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, no. I've a lot of people don't know a lot about my family, and I've recently lost my dad, and he was badly disabled. He couldn't walk 100 yards, and he never took a penny from the state, you know, in any sort of like, you know, benefit or disability payment while he was alive. My sister, sadly, is badly disabled. She's pretty much the same. She's reliant on the state. You know, disability is something that's very, very close to me. And the problem I see is too many people are too they're too focused on the survival of the fittest. And the way I see the human race is that, you know, we've reached almost the pinnacle. I don't believe we've got too much evolution to do yet. You know, certainly not physical evolution. I think we've got sort of like, you know, maybe a little bit more of mental evolution and definitely emotional evolution to do. And, you know, you've got far too many people sort of like that think that, you know, if you're weak, you cannot contribute, which is completely false. There are, you know, the way I see it is you bring the weaker people up rather than sort of like them pull the stronger people down. And the you know, me as an able-bodied, I mean, you know, I'm an ex-professional athlete. I'm quite able-bodied, and the way I can contribute would be in able-bodied ways, but the way that someone like, for instance, Stephen Hawking could contribute would be in, you know, the intelligence ways, the mental ways. And if we ignore bringing the less abled up, we basically are, you know, a fool to ourselves as a human race, because, you know, we're at that stage now where we don't need to leave anyone behind, where we don't need to let the sort of like less able flounder. And we need to consolidate what we've got and work as a species and work as a human race to sort of, you know, make everything better. And all the people that are physically able, they might be able to do able-bodied tasks, but they're probably going to be lacking in the more mental and emotional things that the less able, the physically disabled, can bring to the table. So it's one of the things where we've got to realise our humility, and we've got to sort of, you know, just be kind and be kind to the people that can't physically do what we can do, but mentally and emotionally are probably well ahead of us.
I mean,
yeah, totally agree, Chrisy. You know, just the other day I saw this guy, you know, a blind guy with a stick, and he was trying to cross this busy road, and I thought, well, shall I go over and help him try and get across, you know, so he crosses safely? Well, I didn't even have a chance. By the time I'd got across road, he'd already crossed before I could even do it, and I thought, blimey, you know what I mean? I saw him in advance or even crossing this road, so I was prepared, you know, to go out and help him if he needed it. It was a busy road. But before I could even approach the guy, he'd managed to do it himself. It just amazed me. I thought, you know, if we talk about people with disabilities being weak, then I'm sorry, but the strength that I got from that guy that day was just amazing.
Different abled, the way I like to put it, mate. It's, you know, I mean, disabled physically, but different abled mentally. Because some of the strongest people I've ever met, and especially my dad, you know, physically he was disabled and badly disabled, but mentally, that guy, he was strong. And the way he got his strength was from being physically weaker or less abled than us, you know. It's one of them things where you've always got to ask yourself, what can someone bring to the table that you haven't brought? And, you know, people like Stephen Hawking and, you know, anyone that's got a disability, they've got an inner strength that most able-bodied people would never understand. And that all helps the mixture and you know, the being that we all are. There's different things for different people and different strengths from different disabled people. You know, it's an amazing thing, and the sooner we sort of start forgetting about, you know, the able-bodied, I'm going to get my words wrong here now. The able-bodied pluses and the sort of like what seem to be disabled negatives, but you know, it's from times when I've been sort of like had an injury and, you know, I broke my ankle once and I couldn't walk for a long time. I never did as much thinking, you know, because I couldn't walk and because I couldn't do things that my body would allow me to. I had to rely on my mind a lot more. And when I relied on my mind, I found that it was opening me up as a human being.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Chrissy. I've got a brother, actually. The guys have talked to him a few times on Axiom. He comes on occasionally, and he was disabled from an early age. He was one of the polio victims in the 50s, and yeah, the rest of us brothers. I mean, there's 5 brothers and four sisters, so it's fairly well. It wasn't rare in those days to have that size sort of family, but he had to grow up and watch us all play football and do all the physical things he couldn't do. But mentally, he's stronger than all of us put together. He is so mentally strong. He could get through a lot of things. I think a lot of us in the family would probably struggle with mentally, but he is very mentally strong. He's very able in that department, always has been, and has always looked after himself and not relied on other people. They tend to be more self-reliant. Actually, I find, well, he's my brother. I've got a little bit of bias, obviously, but he, you know, I found that with him, and he, you know, I kind of felt a bit sorry when I used to be playing football and stuff like that, and the other brothers and things, and playing cricket at the village green, and he used to be just watching. But you know, he's a mentally tough old cookie, and he's approaching 70 now, but he's still sharp as a razor. So yeah, I'm with you 100% on that, Chrissy. Yeah,
I'll tell you what.
While I was watching you play cricket, I guarantee you, while you was thinking of striking the ball and just making contact with that ball on that bat, I bet you he was looking through it all and working out the strategies of the game. You know, it's one of them things where, you know, I can remember speaking to a football coach ages ago and him saying that he was the worst footballer on the pitch when he was playing, but because he was the worst footballer on the pitch and he couldn't do it physically, he did it all twice as good mentally. And he came out with the strategies and he came out with, you know, with the ways to win that game. You know, using his brain rather than sort of like using his legs, which weren't as good as the other players. So it's always going to be one of them things where, you know, getting, and this goes in life as well, guys. You know, you get people that can't sort of like do something as well and have different opinions. And so what they do is that they look to other areas and they become strong in other areas. And getting strong in other areas and adding that to the mix makes everyone stronger. So it's always good to have different opinions. I mean, forever now I seem to be arguing with people on social media, and a lot of my good friends that think the same way as me, they say to me, why do you suffer these people that have got completely different opinions? And I have to simply answer them that people with other opinions give me different views, and different views gives me more depth in opinion, and it makes me understand people. And when you understand them better, you can reach out to them. And when you can reach out to them, you can add their contributions, because everyone's got a contribution. You know, I mean, the only thing I'd say, guys, because I noticed we was talking earlier about freedom of speech, which I am completely for. I think it was Voltaire that said, I might disagree with you, but I defend I defend your opinion to the death. which is fantastic. The trouble is, you've got to differentiate between, for instance, hate speech and opinion. And obviously, you know, people that have an opinion that is based on ignorance, they've got to have that pointed out. Doesn't mean to say you're telling them it's wrong. It's all you're telling them is that, you know, they've for instance, taken their view from somewhere like the Sun newspaper, you know, and they've formulated it. And the trouble is today, society is very shallow. You know, people are after money, they're after greed, and the first opinion that they deem to be close to what they want, they often take without, you know, giving it any reflection, which is where you get a lot of people that, you know, they'll say something, they'll make a statement, you question that statement, and then instantly they've got no opinion after that initial statement. And that's where is all they've done is jumped on someone else's opinion, claimed it for themselves, not really thought about it. And all of a sudden now you've got an uphill task to change that, because they're deeming you to say that they are wrong, on, you know, because of that.
Yeah. Well, we talk about freedom of speech, but what about freedom of hearing? Freedom to listen.
Yeah, PJ, just like to mention, we got somebody else that's come on the show. I don't know if you want to bring them in. There's somebody there.
It should be Glenn. Is that Glenn? Have we got Glenn with us, have we?
Hello, yes, that's Glenn. I'm English Patriot on here. Hiya.
Yeah. How are we doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
How you doing, Glenn? You all right?
You're all right. How are you doing, Geoff?
All right, Glenn. It's all good. We're on the topic tonight of self-responsibility, Glenn. Glad you could join us.
Something a lot of people have got to learn to do, isn't it?
Just a bit. Can I just quickly jump in? I just wanted to go back to Chrisy. And Chrissy's absolutely right about disabled people and that. Actually, my brother became a football manager, and he was pretty good, I must admit. He became a football manager, and he managed our local village team. And he used to be standing there with his crutches on the sideline, giving out orders and stuff. So yeah, bang on, Chris. Bang on.
Right, that's really good to hear, mate. You know, I mean, in sort of like centuries past, hasn't got the ability, would have been instantly sidelined. And it's just great that the human race is coming forward now, and people that aren't as able-bodied are actually still welcomed and are put in a position over able-bodied people, because they've got a better insight. You know, it's not all about what you can do. It's more about who you are and how you can be kind to people and how you can contribute, you know, so because everyone can contribute.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff. I'm going to put it back to Glenn. I'll say good evening to Glenn. I cut him off there. Sorry, mate. I'll put it back to you.
That's okay, Stav. Nice to meet you. So yeah, it's something that a lot of people, for a lot of people, it's got lost over a period of time. Having self-respect, self-reliance, self-knowing, being informed. We've kind of relied, or a lot of the population has relied upon, like I can't remember who said it. I think it was Chrisy saying about the Sun, giving people their opinions and formulating their opinions from said media, and not having an informed decision and listening to other people's points of view, because no one's ever 100% right. And I think that's something we have to remember. Very, 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 very important.
But very true, mate. Very true. The way I see it is, you know, a lot of it is down to interpretation, and trying to understand how someone's interpreted something is key to everything. Now, if you don't agree with someone, it's fine. You know, just disagreeing with someone doesn't make them your enemy, and trying to understand how they've got to their conclusion is so important nowadays. And you know, your interpretation of something is only as good as your understanding of it. And sadly, there's too many folks nowadays that haven't got the complete understanding of, you know, of everything, and they take the shortcuts, and they take the common opinions and stuff like that. And if you don't perform your due diligence, you're always going to be unaware of the other side of any argument. And sometimes, you know, you can research the other side of an argument and it turns out that, you know, it wasn't worth researching because you was right in the first place. The trouble is, when it really comes down to it, the important part is being able to speak to someone that you disagree with and being able to help them understand that everything that they've received as far as information might not have been correct.
I'll tell you what, actually, there's a lot of truth in what you said there, Chrisy, and what you were saying about you know, people saying, like, you know, they've got the answer when they haven't always necessarily got the answer, and it's a sort of case of growth, spiritual growth and learning, continual learning, even takes place in scientific circles. Because what I was going to say, you know, that they'll debate different subjects and then they'll come to a consensus, and they can be wrong. Even scientists can be wrong about it. And you know, sometimes it takes somebody who thinks outside the box to challenge it, even when everybody's saying, oh, there's this consensus, like, for example, global warming, things like that. Well, if there's a few people outside the box that can prove them wrong, you know, then should we be delegating our responsibility to science and say, well, science has got all the answers, when they haven't got all the answers? You know, they do get it wrong. Quite often they get it wrong, and you have to go back to square one and put it all right again.
Yeah, I mean, you know, very often
delegate our responsibility. Hey?
Sorry, mate. Very often you get two sides of a discussion, and there's always really one answer that will improve things, and that will be the truth. And the trouble is, the two people sort of like views on it, a lot of the time they're not prepared to discuss where their argument is wrong and where the middle ground is, the common ground is. And the way I look at it, I suppose, guys, is, you know, I've got a lot of sort of like, you know, left-wing political people that believe that they are completely right. And then I get a lot of right-wing political people that believe they are completely right. And the thing is that they start from a point of view that is impossible for the other one to accept. Rather than start from the left wing or the right wing, what they need to do, and what we all need to do, is start from a common ground. And you need to find something that, you know, appeals to both people. And the way I usually do it, guys, is, you know, I sort of like, I think, right, I want what's best for my children. And I imagine that the person I'm speaking to wants what's best for their children. And I try and find the middle ground there. And then we hit middle ground, which we can hopefully both agree on. And then we can start sort of like deviating from it a little bit. But when you deviate from it, you find the compromise. And then you can sort of like start working together, because you've not come at completely different poles, you know, from apart from each other. So it's one of them things where more people need to start from a common ground, rather than sort of like, you know, from a far left or a far right, or wherever they're coming from. Find out what you agree with, and work on that, build on that, rather than find what you don't agree with and defend that, because you'll never ever be able to make up the ground in the middle.
Build upon a common, what you've both got in common, and work on that to sort of to create compromise and sort of working situations, rather than starting poles apart and then trying to meet in the middle. I see what you're saying. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. It's always better to start from common ground than anywhere else. Just a quick one, guys. I was just going to ask English Patriot. Sorry, bro. I didn't catch you real. Is it just English Patriot you want to go by here, mate?
No, you can call me Glenn.
Glenn,
just
Glenn.
Yeah.
Glenn, mate, I get hit around the head a lot, and my memory is absolutely terrible. So apologies there. Glenn, just quickly, I noticed you've got the Pendragon avatar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, not that I've got any problem with anyone having anything like that, mate. Please don't think I'm your enemy, because I'm not. Just quickly, bro, you know, you've got the Pendragon thing. So, are you part of the Pendragons?
I am. Yes.
No,
not necessarily that I agree with everything everyone says. In essence, it's more to do with the Constitution. When I heard about them reading about the Constitution, it rang to me. It resonated with exactly what I was feeling and everything. And there are great people in there.
Yes,
and there are a few strays.
Yeah.
It's one of those. I don't class myself as like I'm just a Pendragon, because I'll support the FLA, I'll support Veterans Against Terrorism. In essence, I'll support anyone who wants the best for the country, who are real patriots.
Yeah. Just wondering. I mean, you know, obviously when the Pendragon stuff came out, I obviously had a look at it. Anything that is beneficial for the human race, I am completely with. I understand that I'm not going to have, and this is where hopefully, you know, I've got more strings to my bow, because I've got some people on my friend list, you know, on social media that other people think I shouldn't have. I've got people that are always saying to me, "How can you suffer this person having that opinion?" And it's all I was going to say, Glenn, was, you know, I mean, my biggest problem for the Pendragon movement is the support for the Tommy Robinson sort of, like, you know, thing and stuff like that. I'm just finding it a little bit too much, to be honest. I see it as a little bit counterproductive and divisive. Can I get your thoughts on that, Glenn? I mean, how is it going in there as far as, you know, the ex-EDL and stuff members that are joining up? I mean, how do you find that, mate?
Well, I don't know who's who from ex-EDL. I know that Davy Russell has spoken for the EDL. I don't know if there was actually, if he was a full-on member. Tommy Robinson, EDL days, yes, it could have been. It was a bit iffy. And today, like, I think he's changed a lot. I think he's changed in the way he's projecting things. He's gone a little bit. Don't know how to put it. He's not political correctness. He's just doing it the right way in a sense. And I know everyone. I know it can create divide, and it has done. But at the end of the day, I don't see anyone else talking about the problems that he is speaking about.
I would add to that, actually, Glenn, because I think, I mean, even Lord Pearson, when I seen that thing about Lord Pearson, he said about Tommy being a naughty boy in the past, and I think we're all on a learning curve here, aren't we? Even Tommy Robinson at some point might have been a bit of a plank or whatever you want to call him at some point, but he's growing, he's learning, the same as all of us. We're all on a learning curve, and I think,
and you've got to remember, he's 33.
I think he's highlighting some very important problems in our society at the moment, like freedom of speech, and I think he's doing a good job at the moment, to be honest.
I didn't even know 33. Wow. The only issue I have with Tommy Robinson in him doing what he's doing is, fair enough, he's raising everything that needs to be raised about these radical Islamists or whatever you want to call them. But my issue is he's gathering crowds with these people that he's talking about. Now, I find that quite dangerous, but if people want to go along and put themselves at risk, then that's up to them, isn't it?
I see where you're coming from with that. I do think it should be up to local constabulary to address the major issues, but they don't seem to be. I think this is why more and more people are trying to get behind Tommy, to protect Tommy, because he's the only one speaking out about it and putting himself out there. I don't know. It's kind of like apples and oranges, isn't it? It's
the problem I've got, guys. I see Tommy Robinson and, you know, the folks around him. I see it that they are primarily aiming their efforts at a hidden agenda, and you know, that they're suckering the mass intelligent narrative. I'd like to think that, you know, everyone should be educated and everyone should learn about what's going on, not just follow it sort of, you know, willy-nilly as it was. And Tommy Robinson only seems to be targeting the wrong uns that are in his demographic. He seems to be, you know, I mean, if I got a phone call tomorrow saying there's some paedophiles that are being sentenced tomorrow at whatever court, and will you come along and let's have a heckle of them, I'll be completely up for that. And I wouldn't ask whether or not, you know, what religion they were. I wouldn't ask what creed, what colour. The way I see it is that the defining factor would be that they would be, for instance, a paedophile. And paedophiles, regardless of creed, colour, faith, whatever, should be tackled wherever you find them. And it just seems that, you know, Tommy and all that lot, they seem to be targeting only the ones that they're not completely on board with their religion. They're targeting Muslims that are paedophiles or that claim Muslim as their race. As their faith. That is my problem. You know, there are plenty of paedophiles out there that we need to tackle. There are plenty of wrong uns out there we need to tackle, not just
I
Islam.
completely agree. But this is another reason why all the paedophile hunting groups were set up. And I think I don't know. They're doing a good job, but they're being held. They're not being helped. And the problem with paedophilia is it's so embedded in our political and our civil servants that they won't deal with it. So dealing with the whole issue isn't going to deal with the issue. And I see that Tommy's targeting one thing and you've got the paedophile hunters that are targeting the other thing, but neither of them are being helped in any sort of manner, only by the people of the nation. There's no help from the higher above powers, so to speak, because they're all complicit.
Their purpose to keep us divided, though, bro.
This is true.
Guys?
Hello, everybody. I made it back.
Hey, Lopi, how you doing, darling?
All right, Chrissy, how are you, love? I have no idea what we're all on about now, and I've been listening to about pedophilia, about Tommy Robinson. I think honestly, if we're all talking about all this, I think what Tommy Robinson did today was absolutely brilliant. It made people aware that, you know, basically they need to stop giving away their inalienable rights, the freedom of speech, you know, because they're doing that with this, what they're calling Islamophobia. It's not Islamophobia, it's the controlling of what host nations, whether it be in America or it be in England, it's basically we're not allowed to talk honestly about anything about Islam. Remember back in the day, somebody had drawn a picture, a satiric picture of an Arab, and they said that it was Muhammad. Okay, somebody said it was Muhammad. It could have been any Arab, but because of it, somebody in the Arab nation, or what, you know, blood type, whatever you want to call it, said it was a depiction of Muhammad. That person is automatically castrated and lost their job, you know, it was horrible.
Can I just say that, Lopi? I mean, a lot of it, people forget that most people, regardless of religion, creed, colour, race, are moderate. And the only people that are offended by cartoons of Muhammad are the extremists, the Muslim extremists. Just like, for instance, there are people out there that, you know, there are Christians out there that will be offended by anything anyone says about Jesus. And I think a lot of people are forgetting that it's the moderate people aren't the problem, regardless of their faith or their creed or their nation. They're bothered. Sorry, the only people that are bothered are the extremists on both sides. And there are extremist Christians, there are extremist Muslims, and the moderates in the middle, and this is why they're moderates, don't want to offend anyone. But it's, you know, you've got both ends of the spectrum. You've got the extremists on both sides that are trying to pull people out of the middle and pull them into extremism. And what the moderates need to do is they need to pull the extremists out of the extreme and get them into the moderates.
Well, that's all good and said, that, Chrisy, but how can they be moderate when they're just remaining silent? Some people have put them on par as being as bad as them.
This is where we go back to the original conversation, which is responsibility. And the moderates have a responsibility to prevent the extremists from taking over.
Well, I mean, we did have a conversation about... We had a conversation about Sufism, Chrisy. I'm not sure if you're familiar or up to date with what that, you know, faith is. But just before I go into that, I want to bring Surfer in because he's wanting to say something. And before he forgets what he's going to say, let me just bring him in. Surfer, Mike's yours.
Hi, guys.
Hello, mate.
Hi, Jim. I was just listening to what you and Chrisy and Glenn were saying. And then the main topic was responsibility, but moral responsibility in society. I think people have felt this, it's been taken away from them. They will remain silent. And when you've got, say, add the subject of Tommy Robinson's speech today, is that I think sometimes people need that voice to stand up and say what their opinions are without, you know, so they can stay in the background. Because in today's politics, if you stand up on your own, you know, you don't get any support. All you get is, you know, badgered, hated, shut up. You know, it's like Chrisy, some of the stuff that you do, you know, you're on the receiving end probably 24/7, aren't you? You know, if you stand you stand on your soapbox, and what happens? They all come for you.
Yes,
you get targeted, don't you?
Yeah.
You know,
if you strike the target, you get a flak.
Of course you do, yeah. But you put yourself out there in a similar way, not in the same topics, but in a similar way to, you know, what Tommy did today. You know, you've done your TV thing, and you've done things that I've done in the past, and certain groups, and all people do on the internet is stand there and criticize you. But people from especially poor areas, you know, I mean, Tommy comes from Luton. He's probably seeing stuff that is 10 times worse than what I see. You know,
I'd like to,
but Tommy makes stuff 10 times worse than what it could be.
No, I'm just talking about originally when he started out.
Right, yeah.
Okay, I understand what you're saying about, I think there was a concern or suspicions of, I don't know, let's just say, wink, wink, sponsorship or whatever, if you're coming from that end of the spectrum. You know, there are people out there we know in the past who are sponsored or put there, but, you know, we don't know that until we got some hardcore evidence, do we?
It's apparent, and it's quite well known that he's been to Israel a few times. But apparently, there's a Zionist group that are involved with him.
How do you mean?
That have sponsored him, basically. But he went to Rebel Media and left all of that behind, and that was when he was at the EDL. Is he still involved with them now? I'm not sure. I couldn't say yes or no. But what Tommy done today was different to what he's ever done before. He was just literally standing there for freedom of speech, and I take my hat off to him. He read out someone else's speech and then left. That's all he wanted to do, and for that, I don't think many people can take that away from him.
I didn't see what I've not seen his speech today. I don't know what he done. And the problem I've got with Tommy, and I think the problem that a lot of us people will have, is that he's so tainted by the previous stuff he's done and his past and whatever else, that, you know, it doesn't inspire you to want to hear what the guy's got to say. A lot of what I think he probably said has probably already been said by other people before, and just hearing that he's read out someone else's speech makes me less inspired to listen to him, because I'd like to know what an actual person thinks. It's good to be guided by other people's stuff, but, you know, I just can't get away from the simple fact of the matter. The guy seems to have the hidden agenda where he wants to bring up all the worth from a faith that is, I believe, basically, you know, not out to get us. You know, I know I've got a lot of Muslim friends, and I don't know very many people that, you know, believe their religion is the way for everyone. Hardly anyone's religious anymore, you know. I mean, you know, speaking to a friend once that was, you know, a Muslim, there he was having a bacon roll after being out on the piss all night, and he got a phone call from his mum saying, "Are you going to the mosque?" And he's like, "Of course I am, mum." She believes him to be a strict Muslim. He's eating a bacon sarnie after being out on the piss with me all night.
Well, even majority of the extremists don't follow it. They do, and this is the problem. The extremists are the political. Well, I see a lot of Islam as just political ideology, from where it came from and how it was formed to where it's come from. There's no give, like Sharia courts and not paying interest because it's against their faith. Well, that's not right.
Sharia law is never going to take hold. It's never going to take hold. I mean,
but we have Sharia courts within the country already that are active.
They're not
because we have
Sharia sentences won't ever go through because they're not sanctioned by British law. It's you know, I mean, you've got civil cases that sort of like have got a Sharia angle to them, but if you look into them, and I haven't looked into them as much as I wished I had, but from what I can see, you know, if you've got two people that are saying they wish to be governed by that, you know, they're right to say that they should be governed by what they wish to be governed by. It's a hell of a mess, and it is muddy water as far as sort of like getting any clarity towards it. The simple fact of the matter is, the more we are divided now. Please remember, guys, you know, and I'm not having a go at anyone that is religious. I would love to have faith, but I just struggle to believe that there is anything out there other than science. And I don't like, you know, anything that brings you to your knees. Nothing should bring you to your knees. You should be a proud person. You should be looking to progress your life and the human race. And religion doesn't do that.
We're back to self-responsibility again, aren't we, Chris?
Exactly.
Where we came
well done, mate.
And, you know, I think, you know, let's beg the question then. Religion, I mean, all this stuff about Tommy Robinson is to do with the Muslim and the religion and all this stuff. So when you take up a religion and you start acting according to a religion, you're not taking self-responsibility, are you? What you're doing is you're delegating it to this religion called Islam. Not even necessarily a religion. Some people say it is a political ideology. So in a way, you're delegating your responsibility to this political ideology called Islam, and you're not taking responsibility. So it's up to them to take responsibility. And I think if we had one rule for all, as it used to be, which was equality before the law, that means everybody, without exception, even the bloody politicians,
even the Queen,
responsible equally to common law, or, you know, or sensible morals, or even just a golden rule.
I was going to say the golden rule. Well done, mate. I just yeah.
Well, I think that would be enough if everybody took personal responsibility to the golden rule. I think that would be more than enough. I mean, you know, all this. Multiple different types of rules. At the moment, we've got EU rule, we've got British law, we've got all these religious rules that people are, you know, that are sort
adhering to,
clashing with the common laws. They're all clashing with each other. Everything's clashing with each other. We need a simple set of guidelines. Keep it simple, keep it straightforward, and we can all take personal responsibility, and everybody would bloody get on with each other, and there wouldn't be all this problem. I mean, there should be no exceptions to the rule. It's no good having one rule for people of one religion and then another rule for people of another religion. It's deliberately stirring up a hornet's nest. In my
I agree. It creates a not only a hostile environment, it creates segregation, and we end up having another not necessarily what was that called, a back in the 60s when the civil rights movement, we end up having something similar to that, because except the fact that it's not against blacks against whites, it's going to be, it ends up being one religion against another. And what's the point of that? Because we all know when it comes to religion, nobody's going to win. Point blank.
I don't think it's about I honestly think it's literally to depopulise the whole world. I don't even believe this is just the for sake of just Islam, because in some aspects Muslims are as much victims as what the rest of the world is, because it's not just Christians and that are being persecuted. Muslims are being persecuted left, right, and centre as well. And this is the problem. Like, I don't think people actually speak up about that part of it. How Muslims are being persecuted by their own people because they don't agree with the extreme views of the extremists.
You're quite right. They're stoned. Their wives are beaten and taken. Their families are taken away because one member of their family doesn't agree or didn't do what they were supposed to do, or stepped out of line. It's a fear-mongering religion, to be honest.
There's a common denominator here, and I'll tell you what that is. It's fear. Fear is the common denominator, because fear stops the Muslim from stepping outside of its Sharia imposition and saying, well, no, I'm not going to tolerate this. I don't agree with what's in Islam. Even if you're going to come and chop my head off or whatever, I'm not going to put up with it. It's the same as fear that stops us from talking, or oh God, the state's going to come down on us. We mustn't talk about Islam because the state's going to come down. He's going to stick his jackboot on our head. We better shut up. Let's not mention the word Islam. No, bloody mention it. Don't worry about the law. People need to stand up and stop, fearing the law and fearing their religious and stand up and say what needs to be said.
I've got an article here. I don't know if you guys used it already while I was gone. The one from HuffPost about self-responsibility is dead. I think it works quite well with what we're talking about. I don't know. Did you guys talk about it already?
No, we didn't. We didn't share that one. We shared the video and another thing, the quotes, and I shared an article, Lopi. So,
well, there's a part in it that I would like to talk to bring up, and it goes along with what exactly we're talking about. You want? I don't know.
Put it up now, Lopi, if you've got it at hand. Put it up, and then we'll discuss it.
Pardon?
If you've got the link at hand, if you want to put it up now.
All right. Yeah, it's already. I already posted it. It's that the one that I just posted a minute ago.
All right, I'm bringing that up now.
All right. Basically, if you go down halfway down, basically it's talking about self-responsibility, but written by Steve Siebold. I'm not going to read the whole article because we've already had a lot of conversation about self-responsibility. The part I am interested in bringing up is the part that starts off with take responsibility, and it's halfway down the article.
Can I just say that responsibility. A lot of this, you know, the more intelligent have responsibility for the less intelligent. So, you know, and I'm sorry if I'm sort of like, you know, using the same brush for a lot of people here, but I view the people that have a faith as being slightly less intelligent. And I'm sorry to say that, but, you know, I've got to speak my mind about it, because if you need to have something to blame and to have something to blindly trust without any evidence, really, you really are, you know, the more intelligent people. I mean, I would love to believe that there was something up there that I could rely on and that would look after my family after I'd gone and all that sort of stuff. But I just can't. I'd love to be able to have a faith. I envy people that have got a faith, but it just doesn't work for me because I just can't do it. You know, there's no evidence for it.
Chrisy, I kind of agree with you as well. Oh, sorry, Lopi, go ahead.
I was going to say there's a difference between responsibility and accountability. Accountability is when you go and hold somebody to something, and it's like having their word. For lack of better words, having someone six, because, you know, no matter what, you can be relied on. Responsibility is being honorable with not only yourself but your inner circle. Is much more different than, and they get interchanged a lot. People think that accountability is the same as responsibility. It's not.
I completely agree. And just to touch on what Chrissy said about faith and how like putting believing that something else is out there. Me personally, I believe there was a creator. I don't believe that all of this just came from nothing. But I believe that God is within inside us. We are our own God. And if we believed in ourselves and we followed ourselves and we had self-responsibility and accountability and we lived ourselves as a righteous person and honourable, I think that's where it leads us to God, not to something that is, well, who people believe that there's a man sitting up in the sky that's going to pick them up. And like, I think a lot of like scriptures are more esoterical than actual reality, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's allegorical, isn't it, than literal.
Yeah, like for me, when like Moses was going to the promised land, the echidna bush that was right near him, that was described, is also an hallucinogenic, but it also could mean of getting the to the pineal gland and having the DMT and having the right dreams and that sort of way.
It's always difficult to describe someone else's perception.
Yeah.
And the perception is that you know, a weaker person needs help. I'm sorry to put it that simply, but people that can't deal with difficult questions have a faith, and they have a faith in something that they can't describe and that they can't justify or prove.
And that's why I say God is within myself.
Yeah. I mean, you know, when you look at the subatomic particles, I mean, you know, and this is where we go a little bit scientific. Subatomic particles appear and disappear in different places. So, you know, basically that is magic. And a subatomic particle, you know, an atom and stuff like that, they are the simplest, most tiniest thing in the universe, you know, and for that to be magic points to a greater magic as it was. So, you know, trying to sort of like justify a religion by sort of like giving it a story, giving it a name and stuff like that, when I believe that the human being cannot ever and will not ever be able to comprehend the actual understand, you know, the actual
The meaning of life.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked
As
into
such.
sort of like string theory and stuff like that, you know, and it is a fantastic journey. For instance, you know, I mean, if you look at sort of like the dimension that we're in, and then you look at the dimension that would be, for instance, on a let's say a DVD. I mean, we all know what a DVD is, guys. And if you look at a DVD, it is a flat disc. It is a plain flat disc with no actual life into it. But when you put it into a DVD player and watch it on a telly, you will see sound, you will see visions, you will see fantastic things, you know. It gives you a completely different perspective to life. But ultimately, all it is a flat plastic disc. Now, that plastic disc is changed when it is when it is given motivation by the DVD player and the telly and whatever else. And to try to say to someone that is all they're watching when they're watching something that is absolutely brilliant is a plain disc, a plain flat disc, would be possible to perceive. But it is. And, you know, what if we are on that plain flat disc to the next perception and the perception after that? And what if all these perceptions end up being, again, in a sphere that is forever moving? And you know, when you look at the string theory to that, it is absolutely brilliant, and it's beyond their comprehension. And that's where you get to the end result that life is, you know, life is love, and you must live it. And you just got to let things play out and do the best you can with what you've got.
Okay.
I agree.
I would like to go ahead on with this bit of article. It works well with what we are all talking about. And I'm just going to go and have just a small bit of it. It's halfway down. If you'll scroll the picture down halfway, and it's starting the bold letters with the take responsibility. This is start today by committing to take responsibility for everything that happens to you. This one change in thinking has the power to launch you into the stratosphere in everything you do. Stop passively sitting around waiting for life to improve. The hero you're waiting for might be God, the government, your boss, or your spouse. No one is coming to the rescue. Create a plan of daily action that will move you closer to what you want to accomplish. When your final hour comes, don't be left sitting on your deathbed thinking that you should have taken more risks. The greatest risk you can take is playing it safe while expecting to get what you want. It's time we become a nation of great fighters again. It's time to stop giving up so quickly. Start setting goals, fighting the fight, and winning the game, be it money, health, or anything else. It starts with self-reliant mindset that refuses to wait for the outside forces or circumstances to make things happen. It's up to each of us to be a quitter or become America the Great or England the Great, full of winners who stake their claim and get what they want. Basically, that is the whole basis of self-responsibility, self-reliance, and everything we've just been talking about in the last 5 minutes. That's, you want something, you want to accomplish, you want to feel better, you want to be, have your voice heard. Get out there and do it. Don't be sitting around expecting it to happen, and it won't happen because you're not doing it. You want something done, take the self-responsibility, your own personal responsibility, and do it. Don't go expect somebody else to do the job because you're going to get a job half-assed done.
I completely agree. And it's something that we touched on yesterday, actually, Lopi and Geoff, in regards to self-responsibility. With my Crohn's disease, I was really ill. I didn't know what to do. I was in a whirlpool. I was expecting doctors to tell me what to do, and then it came to a point where I was like, "Well, they're not helping me. I've got to do it myself." So I done my own research. I changed my diet. and I've done all the things that I needed to, what I thought I needed to do to get me better. And I'm here now, not needing any medication or any medical help of any sort, but it's there if I need it.
Good man.
Absolutely. Sometimes you got to do the research and do the good old due diligence yourself to take responsibility.
Well, the doctors know nothing about it. They were telling me we know nothing about it.
Yeah.
And I was like,
well done, Glenn. Well done, Glenn.
Thank you,
from
everyone.
From a fellow Crohn's sufferer myself, and kidney disease, and Uncle Tom Cobley and all. I made a decision and took the pills back to the doctor and put them on the desk, and I said, "They're for you." And he said, "Well, it is your life." I said, "You're damn right it is." And I walked out. So there we are.
Yeah, well, I was very fortunate that I caught it upon the early stages. I'm not sure how far, what stage you're at with yours, Stav. But I was relatively early in my stages. So I was quite fortunate, I would say, in that aspect. Because a lot of people, it can go unrecognised or undiagnosed for a very long time, and that's where it causes the problems.
Yes, it does. I've had it quite a long time, and it comes and goes, Glenn. It's you get the flare-ups, and you learn to deal with all these things like everything in life, and you get to a point where it's not. I can't say for every other person. It's just my own personal thoughts about it, and what I done is I done for me. I'm not going to say to anybody else, "Look, listen, mate, you want to do this because I've done this." It's an individual choice, and I done it for myself. But all I knew that the regime I was on was making me far more ill quicker than doing something about it myself. It's something that took a lot of time and consideration, a lot of thought to do. It's something I just didn't do overnight. I've done my research and due diligence like yourself, and we come to a similar decision, and we went for it because I think at the end of the day, the amount of prescriptions I was taking, and I just say this, that according to them, I wouldn't be able to carry on without them. By the way, I thought that this is just I've got to do something because. This path is leading me down to less and less of a life or quality of life, and I like to think I've improved my quality of life in the later stages of my life, and I am in my later stages.
I was in the same position as well. There, Stav. Told that I couldn't survive without my medication, that I was silly if I stopped taking them, but it's up to me. And if anyone asked me, I would tell them what I'd done. It's up to them, and I would advise people to go and do their own research and due diligence, and not just to take it upon my opinion or a doctor's opinion, because everybody's body reacts different to everything. Like for me, I went to a complete vegan diet and done it that way, but I was lactose intolerant anyway. And then I also started taking CBD and doing a lot of holistics. So it could be a range of things, because I might have needed some sort of pharmaceuticals in the long run, as well as changing my diet and everything. But it's upon doing your own due diligence, self responsibility, and discussing this not with just one person, but maybe multiple people.
Yes, well, natural inflammatories, there's plenty of them, and you obviously know about that, Glenn, and that natural inflammatories are anti-inflammatories, not inflammatories. Natural anti-inflammatories are there, and it's only for the lack of knowledge. And one of the words that Chrisy brought up, ignorance, has to be said.
Yeah,
you only
good.
Get
that's
this.
a good. Yeah, and I would completely agree. A lot of it is ignorance.
Yeah, and it goes across the board with everything. And I probably all agree that all of us in here tonight don't lack self-responsibility. That's for sure. A common denominator, Chrisy mentioned, and sort of go back a little bit on what Chrisy mentioned. with this left-right paradigm division, with everybody, religions against religions, politics against politics, and I think there's something in this room we could probably all agree on. I think most people across all of that area, really, if they gave you an honest answer, we could all agree on with a problem, and that's banks.
Yes.
Agreed.
Definitely.
The one that
The
I always
cause of
find
all problems.
the one to actually sort of like bring everyone in is that, and I'd say 99% of the people that I ever speak to, they all want what's best for their children. You know, once you've got a stake in this world, which is usually children, you know, you've got to be a pretty altruistic sort of a person to you know, understand it if you haven't got children. Everyone wants what's best for the next generation, and that is the building block that we should all start from. Because from that point, you know, there's no argument really. You know, no one can actually say that they don't want what's best for their next generation, for their children. And you know, once you get people to realise that we all want what's best for our kids, it all falls into place. And it's the devils out there that start knocking that. It's the devils out there that start getting it into your head that, you know, actually, no, this is wrong and this is right. If you always look back to what is best for our children, there are no Muslims out there that want their children to die in a war. There are no Christians out there that want their children to die in a war. There's no decent parents out there that want their children to die a violent death anywhere. And that is the common value that we should have that drives everything we do. And, you know, you've only got these, excuse my French, but cocksucking greedy rich that want to profit from other people's misery that sadly are running the place. And it's because they are extremists and the moderates have let them get there. And the moderates, I mean, I class myself as a moderate that is capable of extreme things. That's why I can have a pop at extremists and tell them they're extremists from a moderate view, but I'm on the very edges. And most people in here are also that sort of a person. Sadly, we are in the minority.
Do you think, Chrisy, that's why we've got, you know, a lot of presidents and prime ministers and leaders and that just don't have any kids?
This is exactly what I was going to bring up. It's funny how certain leaders don't have kids, but the ones that do have kids seem to be decent leaders. I'm just going to put it out there. For the last, I don't know, so long, Trump, he's doing what's best for the nation, which in essence is good for his kids. And then
he's got a short-term look on. He's got a short-term view on it, though, because the thing is, he's making enemies. Trump is making enemies, and what's good for his, you know, I mean, I'm looking beyond my children and my grandchildren. I haven't got any grandchildren yet. Hopefully, I never will have, because anyway. But the whole point is what the short-term, you know, we've all got to get on together. I mean, in a few years, I think it was 2040 or something like that, we're going to have 10 billion people on this planet. And there are limited resources. And unless we find another planet that we can populate and that we can move to, we are absolutely screwed. And as it is now, you know, it's all about the focus that all the world powers that are putting right now are on screwing this world for everything it's got and not finding another world to facilitate, you know, more people on. And it's just going to be one of these things where, you know, we won't realise that it's fucked until we wake up one morning, there's nothing left.
I see Trump a bit different. I see Trump a very different, because I've not that I'm me personally, but I've been interested in this QAnon, which is military intelligence who work with Trump, and all of the what they call intelligence drops link up with what Trump's tweets. And there's a lot of smart people out there that have worked it all out, and I follow them, and I also dive into the information that's that's given. And what Trump's trying to do is he's getting rid of all of the evil in the world, like the bad people that have like human rights abuse, like with human trafficking, put out there Hillary Clinton, and the likes of those. He's even going after George Soros, the Rothschilds.
Exposing the atrocities of the people that create the problems. One of the things, and I wanted to remind Chrisy of this, and I'm sure you know this quite well with your line of work and everything, that no matter what, truth always has enemies. It will always find people to hate them and people to use them as a target. And that's the problem that Trump is dealing with now, because we've got all the Democrats. They say that, you know, the Democratic Party controlled Congress here in America for too long, and I kind of agree. Democrat.
I mean, the thing is with Trump is doing some of the right things for very wrong reasons. If Trump if Trump was getting rid of the evil, you know, for good sake, I would agree with you on that one. But the trouble is, I think Trump is getting rid of evil people because they aren't
by exposing and getting rid of the evil people. It creates the lack of opportunity for the evil that they also and continue to create. Now, he's
evil, mate.
He's bringing up awareness, like the virus. Virus, jabs, you know, your flu jab and all of them. They're stupid. They are, you know, they're being forced on children. Children by the age of 5 have already had at least 60 viruses injected into their body in order for them to go to school. These are living viruses in a child's body who is still developing, who has not created an immunity to anything, and yet they're injecting them. And guess what? Trump and his wife stated, no, we're not having that. Not with our child and not with anybody in our cabinet.
Squashed Obamacare. Obamacare's gone now. He's got a new medical top bloke to go around and...
I'm not saying that I agree with Trump 100%, but I'm saying, you know, there are things that he is doing. Give him a chance. The moment he got into to the White House, every Democrat, every Hillary supporter, every Obama supporter had just been bashing him left, right, and center. The man cannot walk down the street and pick a wedgie out without somebody calling him a racist or a bigot or whatever. You know,
the trouble is, I mean, I could not personally trust Trump to be in a room alone with my wife or my daughter. And if you can't trust a man, you know, with something like that, how can you trust him with a country? It's just that I don't find the guy's got any integrity, and I'm not a Hillary Clinton fan either. I see Trump as both.
Hold on, Lopi. Let Chrisy finish because it cuts both of you out. We can't hear any of you when you both talk over.
Yeah, sorry, mate. I see Trump as not being trustworthy with anything, and I also see Clinton as the same. I personally would have, you know, I thought that that Bernie Sanders should have been put against Trump because Bernie Sanders would have thrashed him anyway. The thing is, it's always the way that you're never ever going to get the best pick. You're going to get the two horse race, and the 2-horse race is always going to be, you know, what the establishment want. Bernie Sanders should have been put forward, and Bernie Sanders would have beaten Trump. Now,
the only reason why he wouldn't have,
he's got some bad points, but he's given, you know, he's given away some. How can I put it? He's given away some easy points. For instance, the vaccine route. the vaccine thing would have come up regardless of whether Trump would have come out on its side in a couple of years from now, because I think that's a losing fight that they've agreed that they will sacrifice to make Trump look good. Some of the stuff Trump's doing is good. Most of the stuff he's doing, I'm sorry, I can't go along with. The guy's an egotist. He's putting his ego before his position. And, the silly rows he gets into on Twitter with nobodies, compared to his position in this world are absolutely stunning. And, I really do think that the guy is going to do more harm than good. I don't think Hillary Clinton would have done any better. It just goes to show what a sad world we've got now, that either of them two would even be seen to be tipped for the top job.
Trump was asked to run for presidency by the military. The military asked him to run for it because the military they can't take what's going on behind closed doors any longer. And I suppose they've been talking like that for a long while, but the only reason why they would have picked Trump is because he can't be brought by anyone. He has all the money anyone needs. He's lost over $1 billion, and he's not bothered. But I do understand where you're coming from, Chrisy, especially with the arguments on like Twitter and some of the things that he comes out with. But at the same time, some of the things he comes out with are for a reason that I see, because I see a lot of like the military intelligence drops that have been given and the people I talk to, like Dr. Jerome Corsi. But this is because of like my own opinions. If you go into that side of QAnon, you might see things a bit different to now. But I can completely see why you would say and understand why you think the way you do as well.
Well, I think we're back to self-responsibility.
Hold on, Geoff. Let's just get back to Lopi because she was queuing up to speak. Go on, Lopi.
Okay.
Oh no, I'm all right, darling. I agree with what Glenn was saying. He is a bit unpolished. And yes, and I agree with the fact that he is unattainable as far as you can't buy him. We all know that Hillary would have sold the United States out many times. We know that Obama did the same thing. Do I think Bernie Sanders would have been a good president? We don't know that. I mean, he was perhaps too old for the job. No offense to anybody that's elderly, but it is a very, very strenuous position. That reminds me of another billionaire that went up for presidency, and I'm sure you'll remember him, Ross Perot. He was another billionaire, but unfortunately, he did not win the election. And I think that if perhaps we stop as far as prime ministers and presidents go, I think that if we start making a new trend for non-political actors, and having more business savvy mindset people, we might just be able to get out of this conundrum that our government has created for us all.
My take on it, Lopi, is this. You've got somebody called Trump, who's the president of America. He's either one thing or he's the other. He's either very, very good and he's trying his best, and he's you can't please all the people all of the time. You can please some of the people some of the time, but not all of the people all of the time. And so he's either doing his best and he's just not good enough, or possibly it might be good enough. I don't know. On the other hand, he's the swamp and he can't be trusted. And I mean, I've seen some things about Trump. I mean, right from the word go, he said like he was going to get Hillary indicted as soon as he gets elected and all that, and that didn't happen because the following day he was like, oh, Hillary's a nice person, she shouldn't be indicted, and blah blah blah. Personally, I don't trust any of them, and it comes all back to one thing: self-responsibility. Which
Yeah, it does indeed.
Because
we've got last 15 minutes at top before we're going to wrap it up. Stav, what is it that you wanted to say?
Yeah, well, I listened to Trump before on his campaign, and he said a lot of things no political man, what I say, any bloke running for president would ever dare say leading up to it. So that's one thing I will say about Trump. All of what he said before he became president, when he was campaigning, was everybody agreed with him. And that was from terrorism to banks, corruption, to everything. So if you haven't seen any of those speeches beforehand, I suggest you go and have a look at them, just for the hell of it, yeah? Now, what I would say this. Would it change anyone's opinion about Donald Trump on here if one morning you wake up and you hear that the Federal Reserve is gone?
I'm just going to put this out there. That's his plan. He wants to get rid of the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
Saying things and doing things is two different things. Excuse me.
He's got to put everything in place, though. Like the executive order that was signed on the 21st of December, and there's one that was signed in January that made certain things military only.
He wants a full auditing of the Fed, doesn't he?
If he got rid of the Federal Reserve, yeah, and it worked, and everything was good, I will go around and lick every bullfrog I find, and any bullfrog you give me, I'll lick it.
And walking the walk is two. Sorry, Chrisy. Talking the talk and walking the walk is two very different things. It's all the politicians do it.
Well, I'll tell you this, though, Geoff.
Hang on a sec. Let me just finish what I'm saying a minute. 1 second. You can come out with all these great big manifestos and election promises. None of them are held to account. None of them have to sign a lawful contract saying they will guarantee to do what they say they're going to do. And at the end of the day, until it actually happens, it's all pie in the sky, and it means absolutely nothing. That's my concern.
Agree. I do agree. He has boosted the economy. He has improved jobs. He's done a lot of what he said he was going to do. But in regards to like taking out like Obama, Hillary, and all the likes of those, all the pieces have to be in place. Like all the dominoes have to be all in place, because if one's out of place, then it could ruin the whole plan. And I understand what you're saying, like how I personally think that anyone who goes into a position of power, like Prime Minister or President, they should sign a legal document to say, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I said I was going to do, and have some sort of accountability towards it, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to add to what Geoff was saying. I'm not saying he's going to, Geoff. I'm not saying that he's right. I'm not saying whether that's possible or not. But it was just okay. It's perhaps people shouldn't ask those questions, but I just thought I'd put it out there. The only thing with Bernie Sanders is a career politician. You'll get no change from him. And the only thing is, you can't say the same about Trump. He wasn't a politician. And I'm a political atheist. I think you know that. I don't believe in any. I like that phrase. Yeah, well, I don't. I never have done. I toyed with it when I was younger. But that's about it, really. But it's something that's never really interested me, really. But later on in life, you go down enough rabbit holes, I think we've all been down, and you realise what the system is and how it works. You think, well, you know, is it ever going to change if you keep electing politicians? And no, of course it's not going to. It's not going to, of course. But like I say, I'm not sitting on the fence with Trump. I just thought I'd put that out there just to see. And Glenn, I knew Glenn was going to say that was his agenda, because that's what a lot. I have listened to Roger Corsi, Glenn, and I've followed the HN and bits and pieces. So I follow with interest. I like all of these things. I try not to leave anything out. I try to include everything as much as I can till my brain explodes sometimes. But
yeah, I'm the same. I love the information. So even if it's not for what, if he's going to do all of this, the information's there and it's being put together and people coming together to get this information. So no matter what, as people, we can we can go to the courts and have these people arrested and indicted ourselves. We don't actually need a president or the prime minister or anything like that. We have the capabilities to do that ourselves under our constitution. So fortunately, our forefathers actually thought of that.
Just a little thing, guys, that puts Trump into perspective for me. Is that all right?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Trump goes to a Trump hotel for dinner, lunch, breakfast, whatever he goes, and he eats his own food in his own establishment, and then he charges his own people, the government, he charges them for that food at the top price and puts a tip on it. Now, if I was in office and I went home for lunch, I would not be able to charge my people for eating lunch at home. Now, Trump is that is how the guy views the world. Yeah, he goes to his own place to eat his own food and then charges his own people for it when it's actually costing him nothing. If he'd have done that before,
well, obviously, Chris, you don't get to be in a position where he's at without walking over people. Surely.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, guys. It shouldn't be about walking over. It should be walking with.
I completely agree. And I don't agree with walking over people.
Go to his own place, eat his own food, and then charge his own people for that food. And and that's one of the smaller things about him. But I just find that.
But he doesn't take a salary for being president.
He just takes tax cuts instead.
Yeah,
he gets plenty of tax cuts and he's happy with that. Surfer, are you wanting to speak before we close up?
Yeah, just on that latch, there was a few things I've got saved up. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you, mate.
5 by 5.
Chrisy, the reason that there is a security issue with when the president eats food at any establishment. If you see in the past, you see President Obama going into a burger joint, but you don't actually see him eating it. That burger is actually prepared by the security team behind the scenes.
Bro, I've spent a long time in security, bro. I'm good with that. I know all the ins and outs of that.
I'm just saying. But as regards to him back charging, whatever, if he was to set up a state dinner, for example, what's the equal cost to that? But it is a minor thing. There's a set price for everything, and there's security issues and everything. And it's astronomical, but it's a small thing that the person on the street sees. I see your point. As regards to the whole thing, don't you actually think we're talking about the consequences of the political system when we go back to the original concept of this chat is the responsibility, the moral responsibility? People would say the citizens or a public duty. We're going to continue to talk about the consequences and the problems of those actions. And going right back to what we earlier we said about Tommy Robinson and 109,000 people tuned in when I watched it, giving that speech. There are an element of society that are interested in that, and they feel as though their concerns are not voiced, and maybe that's they're turning up in Speaker's Corner and giving their support to somebody who does stand up. Even if you don't agree with past his principles, those issues are on the table. They do want to be heard. But that is a direct consequences of an immigration policy not being thought out properly. either by the UK government or the EU policy.
There are some positives and negatives to immigration. It's unbelievable. I mean, you know, we'd have a whole chat about that here. And, you know, when you ask people about the immigration system and are they happy about it, unless you're talking NHS, which wouldn't be functioning without, you know, the foreign doctors, nurses and staff.
Well, that's debatable. There are issues there.
Yeah, I believe that we've got the capabilities to have great nurses, have great doctors, but
we had him. We had him, guys. They were called matrons. We had him. Once upon a time, they were there.
We've invaded most of the countries in the world, and now we're complaining that those countries that we've invaded have actually started coming to the country that invaded them for a better lifestyle. It's, you know, you can't invade somewhere and then say, hang on a minute, you know, we've gone over there to invade you, and now you're coming over here because we've shown you a better way. It's, I mean, it's a multifaceted argument that we can't have now. But the simple fact of the matter is that you can't blame people for wanting better for their family.
You don't have the fact. It depends on the facts. I'll give you an example. There was a program on Radio 4 a couple of weeks ago where a nurse had phoned in, and she was saying that she was at the back of the queue for an application to become a nurse because they had to fill their ethnic quota.
Yeah, well, the simple way to get the quota is you basically put down. I mean, you know, I experienced and it's this time last week where I was asked to put my ethnicity, and I always put African, just to ruin their statistics. And that's the way to do it.
Yeah, but I suppose their argument was we'd like to accommodate your cultural needs maybe sometime in the future.
Well,
you know, if you want to play devil's advocate,
human rights, and as long as the human rights are fulfilled, cultural needs should be second fiddle to human rights. So, as long as everyone's getting a fair crack of the whip as a human, maybe culture isn't what we need to be worried about. Because
I suppose we got to ask the question, Chrissy, where did them human rights come from?
Well, they're you know, they're I'm struggling for my words now. I'm a little bit tired. They are inherent in everyone's existence. You know, if you are a human, you have rights, and you know, no matter what you know, culture you're from, faith you have, that is sort of something that should be you know, that should be respected regardless of anything else.
Yeah, I agree. But when people talk about human rights in the modern day, they think it comes from the European Convention of Human Rights or the EU human rights. That's the human rights they're talking about.
Well, that's where, you know, lack of education and information, because, you know, human rights come from, for want of a better word, obviously I don't believe in them, from a God, from, you know, sort of from the very existence of man, of mankind. Because when you are born, you have got the universal rights, and only the universe can give you these, God can give you these, are that, you know, you should be allowed to have a fair crack at life. So it's one of them things, again, where, you know, trying to sort of like limit and restrict those sort of things are wrong in so many different ways.
Do we have more rights than animals?
No, we don't, because
we have more privileges.
Yeah,
animals don't feel emotion, they don't feel pain, remember?
And we have more responsibilities as well. Not only because everyone goes on about their rights, and you know, I mean, one of the most important things I'm teaching my children isn't their rights; it's their responsibilities as well. Because
brilliant, Chrisy. Yeah, good man.
Yeah.
And that is so important, you know. I mean, I bump into people every day going, "This is my right, this is my right," and they're restricting my rights. And I'm like, yeah, but do you realise you've got a responsibility as a human being Before you can bring up your rights, you need to know your responsibility.
Maybe your rights are your
To be a good human being are over and above everything, probably even your rights as a human being, because your rights can be restricted, your rights can be denied to you, even though it isn't right. Your rights can be denied to you, but your responsibilities are what you have to everything. And if you want to be a good human being, if you want to be a good person, you do what you are responsible for. You fulfill your responsibilities before you ask for your rights.
Exactly, Chrissy. I was just about to say, your rights are your responsibilities, because responsibility to yourself. That's it. Really.
Yeah, that's the one. Guys, I've got low battery. I'm gonna dive out before I get cut off by my battery. Thank you ever so much. I've really enjoyed tonight, and I love you all.
We're just about to finish now, Chris. So thank you for joining.
No worries, guys.
Thank you, Chrissy. Good to meet you.
Take care, mate. Thank you, bro. Thanks, Lopi. Thanks, everybody. Love you all.
Good to have you on.
Likewise. Take care.
Bye, mate.
Good to have you on the show, mate. Cheers, Chris.
We could go on forever, guys, but I think now is probably time to, close it up. So, final thoughts really on self-responsibility and your own individual view on it in as few words as little, if that's even possible. I know
Let's go from left to right then.
Yeah.
You first.
You go first, Glenn, if you want.
Oh, no. You go first. We'll start off with you. I'll go last. We'll go left to right. Oh, or am I different on? Is it different on everyone else's?
Yeah, it's different. We'll pick them. We'll go alphabetical order.
Go on then.
Seeing as
that'll be you.
That'll be me. Yeah. Self-responsibility then. Wow. Listening to everything we've all been talking about, it's quite clear that we've not yet found the main fragment of it really that we can all get behind. I mean, we've discussed a lot of things, but we've not actually come to a consensus on what we've discussed. So I'd like to really do that now. That's the reason why I'm asking for your own personal view. So, I mean, I've got one myself, but I'd like to wait till the end. So if anybody else wants to take it before me, I can come back to my thoughts after.
Well, I'll have a go. My final thoughts on it is this. Rights are really, to me, when we're talking about rights, I think rights are a myth, because at the end of the day, all you've got is responsibility to yourself. Because I'll give you an example, right? A short example. I'll try and keep it brief. If you're walking along a public road, you want to go across a pedestrian crossing, yes, you have what they call the right of way, yeah? But if you see a 10-ton truck hurtling down the road and you say, oh, well, I don't care about that 10-ton truck because I've got the right of way, so I'm going to step out on the pedestrian crossing anyway, and the 10-ton truck still comes hurtling at you and splatters you down, there's no good turning around at the end of it and saying, oh, but I had right of way. No, you seen the bloody truck coming. You had a responsibility to yourself to say, well, maybe I shouldn't step out on the road because this bloke looks like a complete lunatic. So I'm going to hold back and wait till he goes past, and then I'm going to cross the road. So at the end of the day, your rights don't really count for a lot, do they? It's your responsibility to yourself that's the number one thing that you've got. That's the only thing you've got, really. That's my final thought on it.
I'd like to state, one, that, sorry, I was gone. I was here at the beginning, and then I left, and now I'm back. Like a bad joke. Anyway, my idea on responsibility, self-responsibility, all that, they all interchange. They're all interlocking. Accountability, everything. It all interlocks. And the one thing that we as humans have a responsibility in the end is a responsibility to be good. In the end, it doesn't matter if you're a dick, what politician you decide to follow, what kind of rules you like and rules you don't like. In the end, you've got to be a good person. Good people are a rare breed in today's day and age. Responsibility to be a good person, meaning that you're not trying to rob your neighbor. You know, you got
to coexist, eh, Lopi?
you don't go to your neighbor every day for some sugar. You know, you get your own sugar, and then you repay your neighbor. That's what's being good. You know, in the end of the day, we're ashes to ashes, dust to dust. What we leave here on this earth is our legacy of whether or not we were a good person or not. And I'd like to leave my legacy as, hey, she said some really horrendous bad jokes. She sang so horribly that fairies died, and yet she was willing to give the shirt off her back because you needed a new shirt. She had another shirt. She didn't care about hers. That's kind of responsibility I am. That's how I am. That's what I want to leave for other people. That's Lopi.
Well,
Lovely, Lopi. Go on, Glenn.
What?
I was just saying it was lovely to listen to what you just said. Go on, Glenn.
So my thoughts on self-responsibility is as simple as making your bed in the morning. That it you can't wait for someone to do it for you. You have to do it yourself. And if you don't accomplish that one little thing, you'll never be able to accomplish another thing going forward or make plans to go forward. And you could be responsible you could be responsible in the way of being honourable and righteous through your actions as a daily thing. Like, you could have a core of an apple, you could throw it in the middle of the road, or you could put it in the bin, or you could leave it on a grass verge so it goes back into the earth. There's a responsibility to do the right thing in the right way at that right time.
Yeah, that's moral responsibility. Because this responsibility has many different things. Stav, I don't believe you've had your chance to say your part, have you?
Oh, can I say something about what Glenn just said? I really like the fact that you could leave the apple in the grass because it becomes a tree eventually. So you end up giving more back with that dead apple core. Sorry.
My exact thinking. Sorry, yeah.
Go on, Stav.
Oh, right, okay. Well, I'm a little bit old-fashioned and boring, I'm afraid, as that might be. But coming from a decade, perhaps one or two before you guys, I'm just, morals, decency, rule of law, common law, the golden rule. Treat others as you would be expected to be treated yourself, and it's really basic stuff. And here's the irony, Bill. If we were all in the world truly self-responsible or responsible for ourselves, would we need this society business? Would we need leaders? Would we need governments? Would we need presidents? Would we need prime ministers? Would we need society in generally? I guess certain respects it depends how you look on society, but that's basically me. I said a lot earlier on when we started about self-responsibility, and I'm not going to repeat it all. We ain't got time anyway. But insurances. If everybody was self-responsible, would you need insurances? Would you go along the line saying, well, look, I'm going to have an insurance and I might have an accident. Okay, but you're prepared to let somebody else pay for your irresponsibility. So, we can go down that line of it all, but there we are, if that makes any sense.
Surfer?
I don't know, I would say.
Bit of crackly mic there, Surfer. Do you want to try and fix that and come back? No. Is it not working, Surfer? He's dropped out. Let's just see if he comes back. I'm going to share my screen for my final bit, but I just want to let Surfer come back in and he's here.
Look. Say, PJ, before you do that, I'm very much like Stav. I'm now a confirmed
political atheist.
Political atheist. That's it. You got it. You took the word out of my mouth, and I think that we don't need the state in any shape or form. We don't need a monetary system in any shape or form. I don't think we need any of it, to be honest. If the animals can live without it all, why the hell can't we? I mean, we're supposed to be the most advanced species on the planet, technologically and all the rest of it. So if the animals can survive, so can we. So we don't need any of it, as far as I'm concerned. But that's
it's control, isn't it?
Yeah.
Go on, Surfer. If you're back with us, get another try.
You got me now?
Yeah, I've got you now. Let's turn you up.
I mean, based on what Geoff and sorry, I forgot your name then. Glenn just said. Society looks at you as members within it that need governing. They lay down the responsibilities for you, laid down in law. They're written down. Moral responsibilities have been put in place, over 100 years ago, or time immemorial. And they've slowly been adapted to, as society progresses, to incorporate modern elements within it, you could say. So, is our responsibilities laid down for us first, or not? Does our individual personal responsibilities come into play before the law? I don't know, I'll just leave it on that.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, that Surfer. Thank you for that. Well, my thoughts, Stav already knows it, probably Predator Geoff as well. I try to do what I can do in my life, and at the minute I ain't got no kids, but I am expecting. For the best part of what I've done, I've always said, if you've got kids, you really want to consider what it is that you want to do if you want to get involved in any of this. Which is probably why a lot of these politicians and prime ministers take the role that they've got, because they don't have, dependents. But anyway, I think I do what I do because even though I might not see any rewards or I might not see the results of what it is that I'm doing, if the possibility is that you could come back in another life or somebody else in future, at least you're going to unconsciously, unaware, reap, what you've sown. It might be a little bit hard for most people to understand what I'm saying, but for people who are a bit more spiritually out there, you probably get a grasp of it. But this is my little meme to finish us off with. If my computer lets me do it, that is. Hopefully you can all see this. Does that come up on your screen?
Yeah.
No.
Not got that now? I'll do it again. Sometimes first time round don't always work. I'll get another go. How's that?
Nothing up yet.
No, nothing, love.
It's not showing.
Yeah, but just
Just gonna give it another try. Hold on. Oh, it's final part to what I want to show, and they won't allow me to do it. I might have to just read from it. It would have been good to show you the actual. I'll just read because it's playing up. It goes like this: personal responsibility. It seems easier to defend actions than to honestly examine them. We are quicker to attack than admit. Admissions require courage. When we summon the courage to take ownership of our experiences, to see them just as they are, to feel them, we will recover the blueprints of our lives. We will face our fears and find the transparent beliefs that created them. Becoming more honest with ourselves means introducing more honesty into the collective consciousness of the world, and this lays a foundation upon which an enlightened planetary civilization can be built.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, amen to that. That was yeah.
A bit easy to read it, but obviously I can't get my screen share to work, so I'll leave you with that.
I didn't have a link for it then, PJ.
I could probably put it up on description afterwards.
May
Okay,
I
that's cool. Yeah.
say one thing before we go?
Go on then, Lopi.
As spring is coming, and I know that most of England is under snow and in cold weather right now, I would like to remind everybody that since spring is coming, please plant some lavender out in your garden. It spreads out lovely. It is one of the favorite things for our bees, and we all know the bees' knees are what's important because they give us everything. So get out to your garden centres, get your flowers and your lavender and your herbs and stuff, and get to planting as soon as the weather starts getting warm. Thank you.
I'll have my special tomato plants sitting out there for sure.
I did try and share it there. I hope you saw that on end.
Yeah.
Right, we're going to wrap up tonight. Thanks for your wisdom and intelligence and everything that you brought tonight. It's been interesting. Probably one of the best for season 4. I think it's been quite good, but it has been, we've had to do previous talks to build up to this tonight. And self-responsibility. Wow. Such a short word, but has so much of a meaning that, even in 2018, we're still trying to get to the bottom of. So there has to be something there, I think, if we keep pushing the way what we're doing and we keep to ourselves and don't necessarily avoid groups and other stuff like that, but just to remember that you're on your own road and there's only you who can move your feet.
Totally agree. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for letting me come in tonight. Be good to meet everyone and speak to Geoff and Lopi again.
Good to have you on the show, Glenn. Always a pleasure, mate. You're always welcome.
Thank you, Geoff.
Cheers, Fox.
All right, guys.
Cheers, Jokester. Cheers, PJ. Cheers.
Catch you later.
Catch you later, people.